Boom. We are live. If you are watching this later, not live, you probably just want to fast forward a few minutes. Probably 5 minutes. I'll put the link in the description. I keep saying I'll do that, but I haven't been. I'm just going to give people a few minutes to pop in. I'm going to post the link on Twitter. We are going to get this going. It is 6:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to get going at 7. How's it going? How's your week been? I hope it's been great. I have to click on my own video and hear my own voice really quick. Boom. 4 people watching. 4 people in the Bell gang. What is up, Pablo? First person in the chat. How's it going, guys? I'm just going to post this on Twitter real quick, so I'm not looking at the chat for 1 second. But I'm doing good, man. It's been a crazy week. I think everyone's feeling that way. I have my lamp here, so it's difficult to type, but it's okay. We're overcoming obstacles, small ones, obstacles we can handle. I have it in all caps, but it's okay. We'll get the people's attention. I always double check when I post this because one time I totally misspelled the whole name of the show and I feel like that was not really a good look. I didn't want to call this like Book of Daniel Part 2 because then it makes it sound like you had to watch Part 1, so I'm kind of like carefully phrasing the title. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And then I'll come, we can talk for a minute, and then we'll get this going. How are you guys doing now? It's been a crazy week, man. The week's been insane. I mean, just like outside. My inside life. Actually, my inside life's been pretty crazy too. But how's it going with you guys? I'm gonna grab the picture. You know, it's really funny. Like when I first started doing the show, I was kind of just like, yeah, I'll just do this. You know, whatever. I didn't really. I mean, I thought about it a lot, try and make it good, but I was just kind of doing it like on a whim. But once I started posting the picture, way more people come watch it. It's really funny. There must be some like psychological reason, like they see it and they're like, oh, it's like a real thing. I mean, it actually is more of a real thing now than when I started, but boom, dat link is posted. First stream I can watch live. Nice, that's dope. Peter's in the chat. Jack Grund, Tudor Toe Tashlin. It's a pretty cool name actually. Yeah, man, how you guys doing? So you know the deal. We'll chill for a minute or two, let people kind of like get in, and then we'll get started. I'm not gonna like start late, but build in a little bit of time just to get people in here. I'm moving the OBS window around. We are good. You can see my gloved hand. So yeah, how's it going, guys? It's going good for me. It's been a crazy week. I don't even remember. I feel like, you know, last week when we did the show, I feel like I'm just gonna organize my paints really quick actually. I feel like last time when we did the show, were the riots and stuff and the protests like even happening? I feel like they weren't, right? I don't even know if we talked about it. Because all that really happened in a week. Maybe we'll talk about that. It's not really a politics show, but, you know, theology kind of dovetails with like everything, I guess, and the mystical stuff. More interestingly, I don't know if I talked about this last week, but I did get a dog. I think I got it the day after we did the show. But yeah, I got a dog and it's awesome. Yo, I got super chats. That's sick. Nice. I was actually wondering if that worked. Dope, man. Thanks for giving me a super chat. It's really tight. Didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. I have no idea. I mean, I guess I know how it works. We'll see. We'll talk about it. I don't know. That's interesting though that I have that ability now. Yeah. So I got a dog. I guess that'll be the precursor show talk, and then we'll talk about everything else. So it's 7 right now. We'll give people like 3 minutes. I don't really want to start late. Like you guys are here on time. I respect that. So we'll just start in like 2 or 3 minutes. But yeah, I got this dog, man. It's awesome. It's really, really, really cool. It's also really cool because, you know, it's funny because like whenever I think about doing the show, I'm kind of like, oh, you know, what am I going to talk about? And I never want to like have like a bullet point list of like, here are the topics I have to hit. Like it's like some talk show. But naturally things are like on my mind, but it all always kind of like comes together into like one like cohesive topic. Like, you know, the world's been like really crazy, and you know, I guess we'll talk about that a little bit. But I got this dog, and it's crazy because I feel like it has made me so much more sane in my life. It's really, really interesting, honestly. I was, thinking about how crazy everything is, and then I just have this animal. And the other night, I wrapped up work. I work every night until basically until 30 minutes before I go to sleep in here. And I go outside, and the dog's just laying on the floor, and I just laid on the floor with the dog, and it was really tight, and it was really interesting because I was like, man, no matter how humans are so capable of partaking of inverted worldviews, and it's almost difficult to have a human interact with actual real reality. So many spiritual practices, even ones that are not Christian, are about getting humans to interact with reality and not these weird abstractions in their head. And I was thinking wow, the dog, no matter what, this dog always is just almost pure in a sense. It's incapable of being corrupted by all this madness that I honestly feel characterizes the world more than not. It's kind of interesting. How it works is we pay. That's really funny. Nice. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I'll see how long it takes me to get a controversial super chat. I won't read it, obviously. It's a family friendly situation, but that is really funny that you said that. Yeah, what else is going down? Pretty much just the dog thing. That's the main thing. I don't want to branch into protest stuff. We'll talk about that later, I guess. But yeah, it's also cool because she's part wild dog. So I posted about this on Twitter. Some of you guys probably saw me talking about this. So now I'm that guy who's let me tell you about my dog. But it's part dingo, this dog. So it's part wild dog. And it's really interesting because I feel someone said this on Twitter about theirs, but I feel there's this element of her. It's a girl too, by the way. Where she's yeah, I'm domesticated, but I don't know. I feel sometimes she's looking at me and she's yeah, I could just do whatever I want. Whatever. She respects me and listens to me, but I feel I can see that wild dog element in there. Or maybe I just want to. But that's pretty cool. What else has been going down with me? Just been in the studio, man, making it happen. I got all these pictures and stuff on the floor over here. I got some frames in. That's basically it. This is going to be tight. I'm amped for what we're about to do right now, actually. Yeah, she's a blue heeler. It's really cool. So it's part Dalmatian, part Border Collie, part Dingo, and part something else. It's really tight. Word, love my shirts. Thanks, dude. What's her name? Her name's Petra. I named her Petra. So it's kind of like Peter, but it's a girl version, I guess. And I looked it up, and Petra, it means stone, kind of, right? Peter, the stone. And she kind of has gray. She's kind of gray. So she has the stone situation going on. And then I was oh, is there Saint Petra? And I looked it up, and apparently Saint Petra is the saint of the abandoned or something like that. And she was abandoned. That's actually why I got her. That's not why I got her, but I picked her up because my wife's been pushing for a dog, and I've kind of been I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm down, but I'm always worried about money and stuff. And then I saw this picture of this nice looking gray dog, and her description was that she got abandoned, and she was on this farm, and she really didn't like it. She was kind of scared and timid. So I was all right. All right, we'll get the dog. So her name's Petra. And yeah, I got the St. Francis thing on her collar. It's really dope. All right. Thank you for humoring my dog discussion. That was very enjoyable, but you know what time it is now. It is 7:04. You guys were all on time, so we're going to do it. We're going to begin right now. God, I pressed the wrong button. That's so classic. 3, 2, 1. Wow, 2 for 2. All right, let's try one more time. How's it going, everyone? We are here in the studio-lo, as it were, doing the painting show. Intro song, Painted Worlds. Painting show, Painted Worlds. Really easy to remember that correlation. Check it out. He's really dope, actually. I was talking to him this week. He's a cool guy. Anyway, though, we are here, and I kind of just want to jump in. Last week, when we did this little thing, it took a while. It was a really long show, and I mean, I'm down, but it took a while, so I want to make sure we just kind of cut to the chase on the front end. I'm actually going to grab over here the painting that we did last time. So we'll just jump right in. I got some like book reading, talking about stuff that I want to hit, and then we'll get to painting. In case it's your first time watching this, I am perpetually mastering the keeping my eye on the chat while also doing the painting thing. So what I've kind of been doing is, I have like some stuff I definitely want to talk about, so we kind of get that ball rolling, and then eventually it's easier for me to like keep my eye on the chat. Kind of has been happening very naturally, actually, so I'm not really going to try and force it or anything. And let's just do it. Let's just get it going. I do like having a little kind of intro warm-up segment, so we're gonna do that right now. And I have this crazy bookshelf over here, and I thought it'd be cool to just kind of pull like an aesthetic book off the bookshelf just to kind of get the ball rolling. I actually haven't read a lot of the books that I will probably end up showing you in this little like 2-3 minute warm-up section, but I think they're cool. I'm always in these like really weird stores, so I live out in kind of like the middle of nowhere, and I'm always in these weird stores. My wife likes looking at like old stuff in like old weird stores like on the side of the highway. It's very actually perfect pairing up. So I'm always in there. And then eventually I realized they have these like old crazy books in there. So now I buy these like crazy books, and I have too many to read. But some of them are really aesthetic. So just purely as an aesthetic object, I haven't read this, but it's pretty awesome. So I got this book right here. Look at this. Look at this aesthetic. Look, it's just purely as a cool object. This is dope. The devil, we got the wyvern over here. Wyvern is a dragon with 2 legs. Just so you know, you could sound really cool if you point that out. If you're ever drinking with people, it's dragons on the Corona bottle are actually technically wyverns. They only have 2 legs. It's very like medieval. Actually, the word wyvern is related to the word viper. You can hear that connection. Wyvern and viper are actually connected etymologically. So just giving you this info in case you want to sound cool at the bar with your friends, or not at the bar, because I don't do that anymore, but maybe you do. It says down at the bottom, does he exist and what does he do? Father Delaporte of the Society of Mercy. I love this like torn, like kind of tattered cover situation going on. Really tight. On the back, got this description going on. Who's the devil? What is the devil's religion? Love that question. What a question. Is the devil a prophet? What is exorcism? Is possession rare? What part do relics, holy water, sign of the cross play in fighting the devil? So I thought this was just a really cool object. I thought I'd just kind of show you guys. There's also some like prints in here. Old books also I noticed. I mean, I know sometimes new books have this too, but I noticed a lot of old books have a section for notes in the back. I think that's really tight. Some guy went through this and marked off the other Christian books he wanted to get. That's always really cool, finding people's notes in these old books. The print is really big. Again, we're just looking at it kind of as an aesthetic object. Although, look at this. The devil's advocates in the 19th century. Oh, please. So tight. Got some graphics in here. Not too many, but just like little flourishes like this. It's pretty tight over here. And one other thing that makes it kind of aesthetic, like you got the binding in here. You can see the glue. It's really tight. Got the Bishop of Dennis, 1871. And at the top, it has foxing. I don't know if you guys know about getting old books, but sometimes they have foxing. It's like this kind of like, I guess it's a mold. I don't know what, it doesn't look like mold. Like if someone didn't know and they saw it, they'd probably just think like something like spilled on the book. But these dots over here, it's called foxing. And yeah, I guess it's like a kind of a mold. So I guess eventually it'll destroy the book, actually. I got it anyway, though, because I thought it looked tight. But that means I can't keep it on the shelf with my other books. So it's kind of cool. I have this like perched over here on my work table, and it just says like, the devil, who is he and what does he do? So very aesthetic item in the studio. Just to warm us up, get us looking at some cool stuff right now. Antique shop, junk shop, side of old highways. Yeah, they have some of the coolest stuff. It's really crazy. Sometimes I've been in there and I can tell that someone maybe like, unfortunately, maybe some like older, like weird religious relative like just died and they just dropped off like a big crate of books or something, and I'll like get there and they have this huge like crate of like weird books. It's like, oh, a kindred spirit left me these. Anyway, though, let's just get it going right now. So, boom. We got the Bible on deck. We'll use the same Bible as last week. Maybe we'll eventually change up the Bibles too, but I got this Orthodox Study Bible. I think it's pretty dope. Someone got this for me, actually. I got a few more study Bibles en route coming to me. But let's just jump right in. So what we were doing last week, we hit Daniel chapter 7. Daniel stuck in Babylon. He's in exile. He's in Babylon. We're all kind of in Babylon also. So really, we're painting a very cohesive picture here of the typological trans-temporal situation we got going on. And after a few other cool things that are going on, got a corrupt king, got some other visions and stuff like that, Daniel has this vision of the 4 beasts. Last week, we painted the last 2. Let's get them on deck. Da-na-na-na. I gotta move the Bible because the painting is too close to the camera. So last week, we painted the last 2. We got this lion over here who had wings. So the first 2 of last week, I didn't say this last week because I didn't want to make it sound like I was playing it down because these are dope. But the 2 we're going to do this week are a lot crazier. They're more fabulous, I would say. Fabulous, not in the sense of like a fabulous outfit, like a woman would say, but fabulous in the sense of like of a fable. They're more like non-terrestrial creatures. They're more fantastic. Again, fantastic, not as in like a great piece of clothing, but literally fantastic. They're more like non-normal creatures. So last week, got this lion. The lion had eagle wings. They were plucked out. And he is forced to walk on the earth with human feet, and he's given a human heart. Actually, if you watched last week, or even if you didn't, kind of interesting. In a few other Bible translations, it said he was given a human mind, which is interesting. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't read that, because then maybe we would have had to make it a brain. It's a lot less like typical theological symbolism. I don't know what the real translation is, honestly. I didn't look into it for this week. And there's a big bear-like creature who rises up on one side and is eating these 3 ribs. And we got Daniel down here sleeping, having this dream. And the beasts represent these. I think this came out pretty good. We're gonna maybe probably do kind of like a different style. I don't know if they're gonna go together or not. We're kind of just gonna wing it. But the 2 beasts this week. So basically, the consensus is that the 4 beasts represent 4 different kingdoms that come about, and that's basically it. These 4 kind of like evil kingdoms that rise up that he or other people will have to later contend with. I'm looking for my phone because I had some notes on my phone, but actually, you know what? Let's just go with it because I want to get to painting as fast as possible. So let's just roll with it. So, boom, really quick. Daniel chapter 7. Cool. And we're over here. So we got the lioness. We got the bear. We'll take like a few minutes doing this, and then, like I said, I want to jump right into painting. The second beast like a bear rises up. All right, boom. So we're in Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. After this, I kept looking, and behold, there was another beast like a leopard, and it had the 4 wings of a bird on its back. There were also 4 heads on the beast, and authority was given to it. So we got this leopard. It's got 4 wings, 4 heads, and authority is given to it, whatever that means. Cool. And then the second thing we're going to paint, it's actually kind of interesting because we're going to go, so we'll do the leopard and then we'll kind of talk about this more, but just so you guys know where we're going. After this I looked, and behold, a 4th beast, fearful, terrifying, and exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and it was devouring, breaking in pieces, trampling underfoot whatever was left. It was exceedingly different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. So kind of interesting, it doesn't actually say what the beast is. It just says it's this crazy, weird beast. So we'll get into that later. But first, we're going to do the leopard. It's really quick. It's only 1 verse. I'll just read it again so we know exactly what we're aiming for. After this, I looked, and behold... Oh, wait, that was the wrong one. After this, I kept looking, and behold, there was another beast like a leopard, and it had the 4 wings of a bird on its back. There were also 4 heads on the beast, and authority was given to it. So I read a few commentaries on this before in the app Katana that I plug every week. You should just put Katana on your phone right now. It's really dope. And I was reading St. Jerome... Mostly it was St. Jerome commentary. That was the main person. St. Jerome and George Leo Haydick. What they were saying was that the leopard here represents the empire of Alexander the Great. Actually, it's really funny because St. Jerome said in this one commentary that maybe it could be because the leopard is kind of a small, fierce animal, that's why it was related to Alexander the Great. I don't know if he was small. Was he like a small, short guy? I don't know, but I thought that was really funny. So the leopard is Alexander the Great's empire, and then when he died, it was split into these 4 parts. That's why the leopard has 4 heads and these 4 wings. So that's what we're going to be starting with. Got the leopard situation going on. And since the leopard is kind of a weird, frankly, like really atypical animal, especially I think in like theological and religious art, I just wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit. I got some books right here we're just going to look at super quick. This book, love it. Signs and Symbols in Christian Art. And the leopard is actually in here. And what it says, look, I got the notes. doing things faster. We're on the next level right now, guys. It says the leopard is a symbol of sin, cruelty, the devil, and the Antichrist. It sometimes appears in representations of the adoration of the Magi to show that the incarnation of Christ was necessary for the redemption of sin. I thought that was an interesting one. This book is about symbolism and Renaissance art specifically, so leopard's a symbol of sin, cruelty, the devil, that type of thing, the Antichrist. And I got this other book right here. So I actually didn't think this would be in here. This is a really cool book. I've shown this a few times before. Dictionary of Bible Types basically examines how things in the Old Testament reflect things in the New Testament. And to my surprise, leopard actually was in here. I thought it was not going to be in here, but it is in here. And there's a specific verse, and I thought this was interesting because if any of you guys, like me, have delved into a ton of Bible symbolism, and you've happened to come across the leopard, maybe someone else has done that, there's a verse that's really weird if you just take it out of context. It's in Jeremiah 13:23, and the verse says, it's something like, if the Ethiopian can change his skin color, and the leopard can change his spots, then you too can change your heart and cease doing evil. So I come across that, and the first time I came across it, I was like, oh, this must be like a poor translation that I'm reading right now, because the leopard can't change its spots, and a human can't change their skin color. So this is saying that you can't change your ways and stop doing evil. But then I looked it up in a few different translations, and I was like, okay, it says the same thing everywhere. So here it says this, and this is the last leopard thing, and then we'll keep it going. The spots on the leopard are from birth. It is an inherent marking. So the sinner is born with evil and wicked tendencies, which are permanent in his life. He cannot change them nor obliterate them in any way. Only a divine power could remove them. The sinner is helpless in his sins. Only the divine Son of God can change him and make him whiter than snow. This animal represents also the sinner who admits he has spots of sin on him, but thinks there is lots of good in him. God will not save him until he admits that he is all bad. So it's kind of interesting. The idea of a leopard like permanently marked with its spots. Can't change it. Leopard is the Antichrist, kind of evil empire kind of thing going on. So that's what we are having set up right now as we jump in. And I'm just going to jump right in right now. Let's just do it. I got the brushes over here on this side now instead of the side I normally have them on. And I'm just trying to see what size we want to start out with, what we want to get going with right now. I feel like I kind of got two options. Let's do this one. I don't actually think I've used this brush on the show before. Not that I don't know if anyone is really that hardcore keeping track of my inventory, but I don't think I have. And let's just get it going. I actually might even start a little smaller. I think this is the brush I was thinking of. We'll start with this one. So here's the MO. Here's the situation. Boom, I got it right here. So the leopard has 4 heads, right? So that means that I kind of have 2 options if I'm thinking about this like picture style right off the bat. I have the choice of painting it. So for 4-headed animals or 4-headed creatures in general, especially if we're in like kind of like medieval style, I drew this seraphim. It was really like a cherub, like not a little Renaissance painting, like a little baby cherub, like, you know, the fat baby angels. Not like that kind of cherub. Like one of the cherubs with the tetramorphic head, like 4 heads, like the bull head, lion head, eagle head, and human head. And it was really good. It was probably the best cherub I've ever drawn, actually. And I drew it this way. So when you're doing multiple headed creatures in kind of like a medieval style, it's like my own opinion, you really have like 2 options. So I'll show you how I drew the cherub head. I'm just going to draw it quickly, but I'll show you what I was thinking and what we're going to do, which is the other way of doing it. So it's a human head. I'll kind of draw it kind of funny. So I got the human head. So you have one head facing forward. Boom. And then if it's 4-headed, what you can do is kind of the obvious thing, I guess. So let's say you have one head going over here, coming out to the left, then maybe over here. You got one head coming out to the right. And then what artists often do is obviously the last head would be in the back, right? But then you can't see it, so they put the head on top. And that's how a lot of cherubs or seraphim or whatever are drawn if you give them the 4 heads. They're drawn this way, and then you have the body coming down with the wings and everything. It's pretty typical in medieval art, even non-Western medieval art. Sometimes in like Hindu art, for example, you'll have a deity with multiple heads, and sometimes they will paint it that way, which is interesting because there probably wasn't that much cross-cultural visual connection before a certain time. So I think it's kind of like an intuitive way to do it. I'll actually leave that on the screen. But the way we're going to do it right now is this way. So someone asked, I'm keeping an eye on the chat a little bit. What's with the gloves? It's the toxic pigments. There's cadmium and cobalt and pigments that would like actually be like poisonous, especially over like a long period of time. So the way we're gonna do it is kind of like a little more old school. Actually, I think of it more as like early second millennia, like 1000 to like 1400, 1300, 1200, even before that, 900 AD. They'll often paint it like this. So this is what we're gonna do. So we got the leopard, right? I'm just gonna kind of put it in like quickly. Oh, such a good leopard head. Look at that. You know that's a leopard right there. The big eye. So you get the head going this way, and then what they'll do is instead of having it be like slightly three-dimensional, they'll just be stacked. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're just kind of like stack the heads. We'll have one coming down this way. I often see like paintings of like the beast and like the Book of Revelations like this. And then actually we'll probably just go full. So we're going to have the leopard like this and his head's coming out. We'll probably just go full kind of like naive medieval style. Naive is kind of a word used in art history a lot to describe, I guess it's kind of derogatory, but like non-realistic form. So we're going to go that way. We're just going to like stack the heads visually like horizontally, almost like they're all like coming out horizontally. So we're going to go that way. And then I'm going to have them coming out. And kind of my plan is that we're going to have this leopard up here. And I don't want him taking up too much space because the second beast is really, really weird. And I want it to be bigger so I can get all the details in. But also he's crushing something with his hands. So what I'm thinking, actually the note card is probably like a perfect size. I kind of want the leopard just right up here. And then I want to have room to get this dragon-like creature down over here. And then if this is a totally separate painting from the other one, maybe we'll put Daniel over here if we need to like, honestly, like if we need to like fit in something else there. So let's do it. Let's get going. And I guess right off the bat, I'm thinking about what color I want to deploy for the leopard. Leopards are almost like yellow ochre color, but it's a little bit warmer than that. It's a little bit more kind of like punched up than that. I honestly can't really tell if I want to take the yellow ochre and punch it up with the yellow or the orange. If you're visualizing a leopard with me right now, I can't really tell if I would want to push it in like the yellow or orange direction. I think what I'm going to do actually, so you can actually see on the camera, these two colors, this is raw sienna, this is yellow ochre. Raw sienna is not as dull as yellow ochre. This color you would use, yellow ochre, to like dull any other color in case anyone is getting into painting at home. Any color, if you put this in, it'll just kind of like dull it a little bit. So let's not use that actually. Let's just go with the raw sienna, and I think that we will mix it with the orange. I can't really tell, honestly. I'm just going to go intuitively. Maybe this is good. Maybe this is a good like leopard color. Let's just go with the straight raw sienna. I don't know. My gut is telling me not to, but it looks so perfect. I'm looking at this lump. I mean, that's like panther color right there, right? Yo, dope. I'm getting super chats. That is sick. No one is obliged to do that. I will talk to you in the chat even if you don't, but that is tight. Super chat bucks, my dude. Thanks. Oh, I guess I'll read. Oh, I read the super chats, right? Cool. Here's some super chat bucks, my dude. Really enjoy the art and content. God bless. Yo, thanks, man. That's really dope. That's really dope. All right, cool. So let's do this. Let's just go with the raw sienna, and if it doesn't look good, I mean, it'll look good. It'll be fine. And I'm gonna kind of try and stay in like the weird, the kind of medieval framework for the animal heads. I'm going pretty small, so do I want to use a smaller brush? Let's just go for it. Let's just go for it right now. I'll just make sure it's really sharp. And it's pretty interesting because, so I want to make sure I have enough room, and I want to make sure I don't make it too big. Because if I make it too big, then the size of everything else is also kind of like locked in. It's pretty interesting getting the frankly, like Western animals in. I know the Bible and the theological symbolism of it, you know, I wouldn't really describe it as like Western, but there's something about like I mean, you could also. You could take it either way. Really, it crystallizes in the Renaissance aesthetic, which I would say is at least influenced by Western culture, but we don't need to get semantical right off the bat. But there's something interesting about like the big cat symbols that aren't a lion. We talked about it last week, but it's also like regal. Oh, I got another super chat. That's dope. Says you gotta support the homie. That's awesome, man. Thanks. So yeah, the lion is very like, everyone's kind of like, I feel like it's at home with the lion. There's nothing like weird or kind of I don't know. I don't want to say edgy, but it's like a very standard, like safe. You kind of know what it means and everything. But the other big cat symbols like leopard, tiger is a really big one. Maybe it's just because I'm like a Western person, but there's something about them that seems like a little more, I don't know, a little more mysterious. I was reading up on leopards before we did this, and apparently they're like one of the more like nocturnal cats. I think that's really interesting. Boom. And they kind of hang out near the tops of trees too. So I was looking up art that had the leopard in it, right? And all these like African statues were coming up where, because the leopard's like nocturnal and hangs out near the tops of trees, it has this like almost mystical and like visionary like hunting capacity. And for some of the smaller big cats, I mean, this is not like anatomically correct, but they have like a smaller face. In fact, if I was doing it in a certain way, I would even smooth that out right there. I kind of want to a little bit, but I don't want to lose the, I did kind of get the feline look I was looking for. Yeah, that's good enough for sure. And the heads in the back, I'm going to lighten them up a little bit. I'm going to make them a little bit of like a different shade just so they like stand out. Boom. All right, cool. Someone said I can use, Isidore said I can use sulfur powder to stop the mold on the books. In case you missed the beginning, I showed this book that has some like foxing, this like mold on it. That's pretty interesting actually. I'm going to look at that. So I'm just going to grab a little white. I don't want to make it like a different color really. I just want like a little bit of a different lightness when I throw down the heads in the back. And I'm mixing with my brush, which in the beginning I said you should never do, but I started doing it a lot. It's kind of whatever, but the risk I take by doing this is that it won't be exactly the right color. Like if I used up all this paint, it would be kind of difficult to like perfectly get it back to where it is, but whatever, it'll be fine. And I'm gonna get a head coming up this way. Boom. And I was really vibing on this. You know, it's kind of perfect that we picked this like theme for this week. Oh, it's just gonna fit. So it's such destiny right now. Because yeah, all these symbols for like Babylon and like the evil empire, I mean, I don't know, it's just really interesting. Everyone's kind of thinking about like the whole state of like the nation, I guess you could say, and the idea of like these like larger evil forces, like even like, you know, just acting like temporally, like through history. And like God using history for his ends to like fulfill his ends and things like that. It's pretty interesting to me. Empires rising and falling. It's in the air. I have this client that I'm working with, and I was doing something for her wedding, and she was telling me, you know, she was basically just telling me like, yeah, it's crazy, like, you know, the Corona thing, and now these protests, and like I had to push my wedding back and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, at least on the silver lining, it's all kind of like a biblical vibe, right? Just like trying to look for some silver lining. But yeah, all right, let's get this one head in here. I don't know how much lighter it's going to dry, but we're going to outline these heads, so it should be fine. And it looks pretty dope. I got that like powerful, like, it's almost like panther color. It's not a panther, but it's a leopard. And I'm going to throw his neck down a little bit further so that I can put a head down here, and then we'll get one more head up here, and then that'll be the four-headed leopard. Boom. Yeah, someone said leopard takes their kills up into the trees. It's pretty awesome. Take it away from other scavengers and predators and stuff. Yeah. It's also interesting because, like, I don't know, were there leopards around there? Like, it's just kind of interesting. It's an interesting symbol to, like, pop up in the Bible, isn't it? And I like the spots, too. Something interesting about, like, a marked animal. I'll talk about the spots in a second. So I'm going to throw down this lighter head down here. It really would be perfect if it was a three-headed leopard, but I'm not gonna rewrite it. Also, just the whole concept of the Book of Daniel, I think is kind of like interesting and fitting. I was reading a bunch of commentaries and stuff on it. You know, I kind of try and like get my information from a variety of people, you could say. And you know, he wrote the book in Babylon, so he's like in exile. You know, and I was listening to this guy talking about like the concept of like being in exile and almost how like followers of Jesus are like sort of like called to be in this like perpetual state of exile, you could say. You know, like we're exiled from like God's kingdom. Not like, I'm not talking like literally like theologically, but just like the vibe, you know, we're here in this like fallen world, and it's kind of like an interesting parallel to Babylon. And then Babylon, of course, becomes like a symbol for these places that we're like forced to inhabit that kind of like demand our allegiance, that kind of demand that we bend the knee. If you know what I'm talking about. So most of you guys are probably familiar with like Rastafarian stuff. They use like Babylon symbolism a lot. I think that's pretty dope. So yeah, in case anyone doesn't know, like Babylon kind of becomes a symbol for like, you know, any place that you happen to find yourself, it's not like a godly kingdom. It's kind of like my opinion. I guess it's not really my opinion. It kind of is a fact, but okay. And how do I want to get in the last head? We're just gonna go full like medieval manuscript style. And I'm just gonna kind of put it up here, and it's not really totally gonna fit in with the rest, but I think it'll be dope. Because otherwise, I would put it back here. My initial plan was to have them like fan back, but I really want to make sure I get all these wings in here, so we're not going to do that. Cool. And I'll make this one extra light, just so it like contrasts with that first head in the front. And yeah, like I said, it's kind of a perfect topic for right now because everyone's thinking about what's like going on in the nation. It's really interesting because a lot of people I haven't talked to in a while actually hit me up. I think it's probably because they kind of like feel the pressure to you know, signal their feelings or like, you know, feel strongly one way or the other. And I don't know, I guess I have strong political opinions, but I don't really kind of try and see things from like a larger perspective. That sounds like super pretentious, but I kind of try not to like oversimplify things, you know. But I think it's interesting because everyone's kind of feeling the pressure to have like the right opinion, which is more interesting. That's actually more interesting to me than like the specifics of what is happening in particular. You know, I'm not really at this point. I mean, I used to be actually like I really used to be that guy. I used to be someone who would be like, you know, if I got to talk with someone about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, well guess what, like I know all the hyper specific facts about this particular case, and like here's this one thing you didn't know, and it's actually only 62%, and like all this stuff. But now what's interesting to me is like how it plays out like sociologically and like on a larger scale, and you know, regardless of what is true or not, that looks dope. I'm actually really happy with how that looks, and I'm going to outline them too. Once the paint dries, I'll outline them. We'll throw in the spots, we'll get in the eyes, we'll get it popping. So yeah, what's more interesting to me is like how it plays out like sociologically and how people are pressured to feel one way or the other, because regardless of like what's true, which is in and of itself something that's like very difficult to unpack, people are like pressured to signal, or I mean, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about unless you've literally been under a rock the last like week. I actually had 2 different people that I know who have businesses online tell me they're just not posting anything on Instagram, which is like, you know, for a lot of businesses that sounds like very trivial, but for a lot of businesses that's like the main way that they like promote their stuff. You know, if you sell like, I don't know, anything random and like handmade, right? Like, you know, if you're like a knitter or something like that, who knits like gloves or hats or something and sells them, Instagram's probably the main way you do that. And yeah, I had these 2 different people. What brush do I want to use to outline? I think I'm going to use this brush actually. I had these 2 different people tell me that yeah, they're just not posting anything on Instagram because they're like scared, which is really interesting. It's really interesting. They told me they were just like, yeah, if I post the wrong thing, people are going to like freak out. And you know, if you say something about it, then people are like, oh, why'd you say like that particular thing? But if you don't say anything, then it's like, oh my God, you're not having the right opinions. Like you're not showing me the right thing. So I thought that was really interesting because also, you know, we're on Twitter, right? I mean, most of you guys are probably on Twitter. Or you hang out on whatever part of the internet you hang out on. I'm just going to quickly outline these heads. I want to get the heads done, the body done, and then we'll get it going. But yeah, if you hang out on Twitter, I think there's this feeling sometimes, man, this brush will not sharpen. I'm trying to sharpen the brush. Let's see if this will work. Yeah, it's good. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty good actually. So yeah, if you're on Twitter, I think there's this feeling sometimes of like, oh, well, this is just people being weird and crazy on Twitter. Like, people always post like, Twitter isn't real life, which is true. But yeah, these 2 people that hit me up, they were not on Twitter. And I think that it definitely has transcended Twitter in some way. Well, I got really lucky. The whole brush hair is actually separated, but this brush sucks. So we're going to use a different brush. Let's see, maybe I'll break out some of the small brushes. Let's do it. Let's see how this one works. This is a really small brush. And yeah, I actually, it's really interesting because I actually had someone hit me up on Instagram. So you guys probably all know me from Twitter, right? That's like my main spot, like by like 99%. But I also post on Instagram because I have to get the art out and stuff, right? Nice. This brush is really small, so I'm actually pressing pretty hard to get those thick lines. And someone messaged me. So this is interesting. So I feel like I should just clarify if I'm going to tell this story. Like, you know, I get that like there's like police brutality. You know, I'm not one of these guys who is like so adherent to their ideology that they have to like conform to like, you know, one particular narrative. Like, I get that there's like a legitimate aspect to, you know, certain things, let's put it that way. In fact, what I would really say if someone pressed me is that like the legitimate aspect is being utilized by people who really don't care, honestly, and who are just doing it for like ideological reasons, but it's a whole nother thing. So anyway, I had this guy hit me up, who I have no idea who they are, obviously. And they messaged me on Instagram, and I never go through my Instagram messages. That's like the real like unincorporated territory of Owen Cyclops land. So don't message me on Instagram. Or you can, but I won't see it for a long time because it's hard to check for me. So I checked it, and this message was like, hey, are you going to post anything about, I forget how it was phrased, but it was just phrased in like an interesting way. It was like, hey, are you going to post anything about, you know, the current state of like race relations or something? It was phrased in like a really interesting way. So I was just curious, and I thought it was someone from Twitter who was like messing with me. So I wrote back. Normally I don't respond to randos, but I wrote back and I was like, is this a joke? Like, I can't tell. And they were like, no, it's not a joke. I really like your art, but I can't support you unless you're explicitly using your platform to like address these problems that are happening right now. So I was like, what the heck? It's not exactly what I said, but I'll tone it down. I was like, what the heck? So I obviously, if you know me, I'm like really interested in people's like thought patterns and what people are thinking and like what people will say. Like when I feel like someone is pumping like an ideology, like whatever, maybe that person has like a legitimate reason for doing that. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that they do either, but I'm not saying that they don't. But it's obviously like a performative behavior, either for themselves or, you know, other people or whatever. So I was really interested. So I messaged him back and I was like, you know, I don't feel the need to like explain myself. Like I'm not getting like stopped by the cops, but like I said, I was just interested in what he would say. So I wrote back and I was like, yeah, well, you know, and I kind of told him, I was like, well, you know, the thing is actually all my art and like literally everything I do is about like fixing like, you know, the toxic elements of our society and all this stuff. And, you know, like seeing this like spiritual illness that's like wreaking havoc in our culture is like really actually, this is actually true. It's really the main reason that I was like, wow, I should stop like messing around and I really should try and like do something with something, just do something about it. You know, I couldn't just watch this like madness like going so hard. So I told him that, and oh, there's a guest in the studio. What's up? What is that? Oh, you want this? Cool. Here you go. My wife's about to make an appearance on the show. So anyway, yeah, so I was like, yeah, so that's like what I do. I was like, everything I do is about fixing this like spiritual illness that's like manifested in society. So I'm not posting anything directly about it. Like I'm not going to post like the black square or whatever, but yeah, I mean, everything I do is about that. So that's my answer. And they wrote me back and they were like, yeah, well, and it was really interesting because they really like hit me with like this wall of like pure rhetoric. Like it was like I gave my answer, but then they like didn't even hear it. And they were just like, yeah, well, you know, I just think that, you know, you have a large platform, which by the way, on Instagram, I don't. I have like 1,200 followers, I think, or like maybe it's like 1,300. I don't have a lot of followers at all on Instagram. And they were like, you know, I feel like it's your obligation if you have this platform to promote like explicitly anti-racist content. Like I can't support you if you're not explicitly like telling your followers like what they can do to like combat racism and like all this stuff. And it was just so interesting because I was like, yo, I'm literally talking to like a computer program right now, like straight up. And like, again, like sure, some people feel that way and I'm sure it's like legitimate, but you can tell when you're getting like the rhetoric, you know what I'm talking about? And it was so interesting. And I messaged back and forth with this guy for like a few messages, just again to see what he would say. I could have like stopped responding. And yeah, it was just like, here's the rhetoric. Like, here's all the buzzwords. Here's exactly what I'm supposed to like tell you. And anything I said of like, well, yeah, dude, but like everything I do is about addressing like these deeper issues. And like, honestly, it's not even really lying because, I mean, you guys know the vibe, but like, I don't think that anyone is going to be convinced of anything by like, hey, I pulled this meme off Pinterest and like, here's these 12 things you can do to like help fix America. Like, yeah, nah, dude, it's not going to happen. Like, we have to go like way deeper and address these like more systemic like inaccuracies and like problems in our worldview. So I told him that, and it's just like zoop, doesn't register. And it was really interesting because I was getting that feedback from a lot of people in real life too. They were like, I don't know what to tell people. Like even total normies that are not political in like any capacity, who probably don't even really, I mean, they care in the sense that they're like compassionate people, but you know, they don't have like a strong feeling about like bucking the system or like, you know, being a dissident person. They're just like, yeah, I don't even know what to say and like all this stuff. And it was really interesting, man. It's one of the creepier parts of my week, to be honest with you. I'm going to throw in these eyes. I think I'm just going to make them straight cadmium yellow. Just going to get these yellow eyes going on right now. And yeah, it was kind of creepy, honestly, because it was like, oh, people are really like mobilizing and like getting into it. And then, like I said before, at the same time, two people told me that they stopped posting on their business accounts on Instagram just because they didn't want to like get in trouble. Oh, there was still some blue on this brush, which I knew was going to happen. So I'm not going to use that brush. I'm going to use this one. So I'm just getting the paint off my brush right now. Someone said almost normie tier now, but I remember reading Moldbug back in 2010 and seeing leftism as a new religion with its own priests, sacred texts, and heresies. Really gave me a new perspective. Yeah, I mean, we all probably had something like that going on for sure. For sure, man. It's really, really, really interesting. And what becomes more interesting is like, I mean, I don't know how you were when you discovered that stuff, but I feel like when people kind of first puncture into like the political sphere, I guess this is true if you're like an extreme left, extreme right, middle ground, you know, whatever you are, there's like a ton of labels, right? Who knows if they even mean anything. But what's interesting for me is that initially I feel like you kind of have to see the other side like completely and totally pathologized. Like you have to see the other side as like, well, these guys are purely just insane, and they're just insane basically. It's how you first have to start out. But then I think what becomes more interesting is that you start to see kind of like the reasons why, and like, you know, I mean, this is a thing with like Satan and like the devil and all that stuff too, which transcends politics but also probably interacts with it in some way, that it's never 100% a lie. I'm going to throw in these big yellow eyes. I think it's going to look sick. You know, it's never 100% a lie. You mix in the truth with a lie. There's a reason that people are able to believe all these different like thought systems. It's because there's a little bit of truth in there with things that are then not true, whatever system you subscribe to. And that's when it becomes more interesting for me, is when you start unpacking that kind of thing, when you're like, oh, like that's how this person is like motivated to, you know, like the person that messaged me on Instagram, I'm sure they're a cool person. I'm sure they're a fine person. I'm sure they're not like, you know, totally insane or whatever. They probably thought they were doing something good. I mean, why wouldn't you, you know? When you start to unpack that, that's when it gets really interesting. When you start to get into like, oh, here's how this person with like totally good motivations is actually like, I'm not talking about that guy either. I'm just talking like in general, whether you're, you know, talking about an issue you feel strongly about or whatever it is. Like when you start to see the other side as people who like are motivated by positive things, and then that's been like warped or twisted into something negative. And that's when you're playing with like a very different ball game, in my opinion. All right, nice. Those eyes look sick. All right, I'm gonna paint in the body. I mean, what do you guys think? I'm actually curious what you guys are. I mean, you know, what you guys are vibing on it all. It's all very interesting. So I'm gonna throw in this body right now, and I'm just gonna throw down. For some reason, I'm having this visual. Oh, it's over here. I was looking at my brushes, and I was like, I can't even see the brush that I'm looking for. So yeah, I actually went back a little bit, and you know what I feel like is oddly relevant content for right now. I feel like it was a little bit ahead of the curve, and maybe some of you guys will cringe, but I don't care. I'm willing to bear the load of cringe. That's what I'll do if it means speaking my truth. Okay, so I'm gonna put this front leg kind of bent. Oh, well, it's gonna be right there, I guess. I put the back leg. I kind of made this bigger than I wanted, but it's not a big deal. You know, actually, what I'm gonna do, I had a really good idea just now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this kind of cloud line so that I have the room I want for the dragon, but the leopard is still big enough. That's what I'm gonna do right now. So yeah, what I feel like is oddly relevant content is all the early Jordan Peterson stuff, man. And I know that, you know, I don't see totally eye to eye with him, obviously, as if that needs to be said, but I really feel like a lot of his stuff is like crazy relevant to what's going on right now. Also because I was really thinking about, hold up, wait, I want to make sure I don't do anything stupid right now. So I'm going to throw down these wings right now, and it says the leopard has the wings of a fowl. I don't know what that means in particular, but other translations just say the wings of a bird, so I can kind of put in whatever color wings I want. It would look really tight to put in like these dark red wings, but then it's kind of like a cardinal. It's kind of like cardinal wings, so I don't really want to do that. It doesn't really like read symbolically in the right way. Brown is kind of really close to this panther color I got going on. What I think I'm going to do is, so whenever you're planning a picture, you kind of have to keep thinking about contrast and how the contrast is working. So like, for example, if let's just say hypothetically, if I put in like black wings or something, that black is going to be really high contrast against the white. Eventually I'll tone it down, but it would be very high contrast. So what I'm thinking right now is I'm going to make the wings dark enough that they'll contrast with this brown. So I'm going to take a really, really, really dark, like chocolatey, woody brown. I'm actually going to use probably burnt umber. I say this every time, but for the browns, the raw browns are yellow like a raw egg. The burnt browns are burnt like fire. So you can see this raw sienna, it's more yellow. The burnt umber will be more red. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with this, and then I'll probably outline the wings in a light color. That'll look pretty dope. And then sometimes when you get the flip going on with the dark outline and light outline, it makes the picture look more sophisticated. A lot of artists that were bridging the gap between drawing and painting and printmaking, especially like I think of it as like early 1900 style. When you start getting the different color outlines, it starts to look like pretty sophisticated. It won't look very sophisticated here because I'm kind of working with like an early painting style, but just throwing that out there. Man, it's really interesting. I really need a brush that I don't have. I really need a brush that's like in between the brush sizes that I do have. That's just a teeny bit smaller than this, but actually it's okay because maybe it'll let me work a little bit faster. But yeah, I thought all the Peterson content was like super relevant to what's going on right now, because also for me, I mean, literally, honestly, I have, and we'll get into the symbolism of the art more, but I'm just kind of shooting the shit with you guys for a second. It's also relevant. I have like literally like a physical reaction when I start to think about having to talk about this with like people that I can't just kind of like burn the bridge with, honestly, if you know like people in your life, because for me, I'm at this point where like, yeah, I'm not going to go start random fights with people in my life about stuff like this. Like, honestly, I'm just not. 2015, 2016 vibe. Maybe it felt a little bit different. I'm just going to put in kind of these like generic brown wings, but I want to make sure I have enough room to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually going to make them kind of smaller, actually. So we will be going kind of full like medieval picture style, where sometimes things are just small because there's a lot of them. And yeah, I really have like a physical response because I'm kind of at this point where I have told myself and I've kind of decided that, you know, I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to lie to them, right? I don't want to be a liar, and I don't want to, it's fitting metaphor, but I don't want to like bend the knee. You know what I mean? If someone says like, well, you know, how do you feel about this thing? I'm not even really talking about the protest because like, I mean, you know, whatever. Let's say it's something I feel even stronger about, like, you know, I'm sure you can imagine lots of random little things. I'm not going to lie to like keep the peace because I think lying is wrong and for a variety of reasons. So I'm not going to do it. But at the same time, I am not motivated to go out and like start shit with random people. So I'm caught in this weird gap where people ask me, you know, like I called my mom to thank her for, she sent me like a bag of like dog treats of all things. And I called her to thank her. And all of a sudden she's like trying to start like an argument with me about, you know, this like political issue. And I'm like, yo, I don't want to talk about that. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie. I'm not just going to like nod to like keep the peace and be like, yeah, totally. Like what you're saying is totally true. And it's been really difficult navigating that, especially the last week where, as we just discussed with the Instagram messages, like very normal people have been like mobilized, like literally mobilized to be like, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the memes and been on Twitter where it's like, you know, if you have people in your feed that aren't posting about these issues, like that silence like speaks volumes and you should talk to them and stuff. I mean, I really feel like it's kind of back to like 2015. It's really like 2015 levels. That's kind of like what I experienced in like 2015. I'll never forget, like, you know, I was at a bar and I was talking to someone, and at the time I kind of knew who I was going to vote for, right? Obviously, but I said that I didn't, because I don't know, I didn't know what to do. I was in New York, so you know they'll literally like hang you in like the town square. So I was at a bar and I was just like, yeah, I don't really know who I'm going to vote for yet. I'll figure it out. And this guy was like getting in my face. Like he was like really mad that I said I didn't know who I was going to vote for. And in my mind, that was such a good like benchmark, because I was like, dude, how can you get mad at me for saying I don't even know? But it was very much so the same energy as now, where it's like, well, pick a side. And if you didn't pick a side, then that says everything we need to hear. And it's like a really crazy, like scary mentality, honestly. So yeah, I haven't really known how to like address that with people, because people call me or I go somewhere and they bring it up, and I don't want to lie, but I also don't want to like start a fight. It's kind of like I know that I'm under some like totalitarian regime, just in terms of like a thought system. So I've kind of been addressing it in my mind, at least in like the Jordan Peterson way, where I'm kind of like, well, you know, like, I don't say this to people, but I'm like, isn't it kind of absurd that you're like pointing this like metaphysical gun at me and being like, well, you have to think the same way I do? But it's like, you know, the people in your life, it's like you're dating some guy you don't even like, you know, you're working some job you hate, you know, I know how your life is, and like you're not really one to be like telling me that I like have to conform to this like thought system you're like pumping right now. So it's kind of how I've been responding to it. And it's pretty interesting because like I had a call with someone. I mean, they called me, someone that I like know from like real life, and they brought it up, and I kind of just pitched it in that way where I was like, yeah, you know, I kind of think there's like these deeper issues, and you know, I'm more about like changing things by like changing like individuals, and they really didn't know how to respond, and I think I kind of like avoided a fight because of it. But at the same time, I don't want to lie. You know, I'm making biblical art. Like, well, I'm not gonna lie. Sorry. Anyway, I don't know if that was interesting or not, but that's kind of my vibe on everything. Girlfriend's sister started asking my girlfriend why I didn't post the black square. Man, that's insane. That's insane, man. I really couldn't have more sympathy though, dude. I mean, that's how it was when I was. I mean, I never know how old people are that I'm talking to, or how long you've been like hanging out in like the scene or whatever. But that's how it was in like 2015, 2016. Like at my job, people could kind of tell like if you were on board or not, and if you weren't on board, it started to get like very like inquisitional. Ever heard of Zugzwang, a German term used in chess where you'd rather not move, but you're forced to make one by the rules of chess, and all moves you could make you worse off? That's very interesting. I've played chess, so I can imagine that idea, but I'm not familiar with that exact term. But that's kind of how it feels. Yeah, that's actually really exactly how it is. If I'm on the phone like with my aunt or something, and they're like, "So how do you?" I mean, honestly, I don't know if I'm like preaching to the choir, but you guys should like prep for that, honestly, because I'm on the phone with my aunt, and she's like, "Oh, you know, what do you think about all this stuff?" And it's kind of hard to be like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't really talk about it with people," because they're like, "What do you mean?" And you're like, "Well, I don't want to talk about it." And then that just is kind of like weird in and of itself. So, yeah. There's something interesting about the people who clearly see the mob mentality but will still tempt them to see what happens. Yeah. I mean, some people need to. I had to do that a little bit. I mean, I was very naive back in the day. I was extremely naive. I was like, well, all these people know me and they know that I'm not this kind of person, so I can like just pop off and kind of like, not that I would say anything, you know, crazy or that I wouldn't stand behind, but you know. You're kind of like, I can signal that I'm not down with the herd, but then all of a sudden, you know, the herd turns on you. And you're like, whoa, and you don't get a chance to, like, defend yourself. Like, you think you are going to get that chance, but, like, you don't get it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, the herd's, like, made this decision, and you there's nothing you can do about it. And that's, it's a pretty scary place. It's chaos. It's the underworld. I can't do a Jordan Peterson impression, but if I could, you think you know where you are, but you don't. That's when you're in the underworld. But for real, though, that's really actually what it's like. And that actually really happened to me. I hate going on about it. I didn't anticipate talking about it, but I definitely know what that's like, and everyone should be very careful. Okay, so I'm going to throw down the legs of this leopard. We'll throw down the spots. I'm kind of feeling like what I'm doing is I'm cruising through the leopard so I can get to this other beast. The other beast is going to be way crazier. We're kind of going to do it a little bit like dragon style, but I feel like I'm kind of just cruising through the leopard to get to the next creature. I didn't really anticipate that, but I mean the leopard's cool, but maybe also, you know, we're kind of doing the opening, talk about stuff, trying to keep it going. But yeah, also it's really important to stay sane, you know, honestly, like for real. Like don't get too caught up in it, man. I think it's, you know, it's interesting because I listened to this talk. It was about the book of Daniel actually. And it was talking about the way of the exile, and it was talking about how we're kind of called to function in kind of the way that Daniel and his friends do in the book of Daniel. His friends take on these Babylonian names. So in Babylon, they take on like Babylonian names. And again, I'm just really need to clarify, I'm not a theologian. I'm literally just some random guy. So, you know, check all this and don't take your like spiritual direction from me or historical direction from me. But to my understanding, in Babylon, when they were in exile, they took on Babylonian clothes. They took on Babylonian dress. So they conformed, but they only conformed to some extent. Daniel has his friends. If you have hung out in certain churches and sang songs, you might know about Shadrach, Meshach, and the last guy's name is Abednego. And they only conform to a certain extent. And it's kind of interesting because, I mean, I guess you could say intuitively, or maybe it's the correct position, this idea of like conforming to a certain extent, but then drawing a line somewhere and not crossing that line is kind of the way that I have started to approach not being on board with society. And I mean, maybe some of you guys watching this are like down with, whatever. It doesn't really matter. In some way, I'm sure you're not on board with society, even if it's in some small way. It doesn't really matter what it is. And that's kind of the position that I took after a while. I was like, I am, like I just said, I'll conform to some extent. I'm not going to go out and like actively start shit, but at the same time, I draw a line. And in the book of Daniel, the line they draw is basically, I guess you could say it's basically worshiping the Babylonian gods, right? I mean, there's Daniel and there's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I'm pretty sure Daniel's there. No, he's not. It's Shadrach, Meshach, and it's just the three friends. I'm pretty sure. I didn't actually plan on talking about this, so like I said, I might mess this up a little bit. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are put into the furnace. They're put into this furnace, and I'm pretty sure. I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure they're put in because they refuse to worship the Babylonian gods, right? It's something like that. But the point is that, and they get out of the furnace, by the way. They're saved out of the furnace. There's actually this theophany where they see this other figure in the furnace with them, presumably Jesus. I mean, obviously it's Jesus. But yeah, and that's kind of so this talk was describing it as the way of the exile, and I was saying that's kind of how we're called to be. You conform to some extent. It's not like you're becoming an armed like insurrectionary rebellionist, like you're not like forming some like paramilitary group to like do X, Y, and Z because it's like a fallen world. So no matter what, you're always going to be out of step with like whatever like state authority there is. But at the same time, you draw a line and then you stand up for certain things when it's like worth it. That's kind of how I feel. The funny thing how it played out for me though is that it's like, well, if you're dealing with like a totalist system though, if you're dealing with like a system that requires you to like conform 100% to the system, honestly, it's like it doesn't even really matter. There's like a debate in Zen Buddhism whether enlightenment is sudden or gradual, but ultimately it's like, well, it doesn't matter because it's gradual until it's sudden, and it's it's like does something change slowly or rapidly? Well, it changes slowly until it changes rapidly. That's kind of how it is. If you draw a line and you're like, well, I'll wear the Babylonian clothes and I'll take on a Babylonian name, but I'm not going to worship the Babylonian gods, metaphorically or literally. Well, it doesn't really matter because eventually they're going to see that you have a line and that you're not conforming to like the totalist system. And that's kind of how I felt when I was in New York, honestly, is that I was like, well, I'll tolerate X and Y, but not Z. But it doesn't really matter because once they push for X, Y, and Z in front of you and you say, well, I'll do X, Y, and not Z, they're like, all right, well, you don't get extra points for wearing the Babylonian clothes and taking on the Babylonian name. That doesn't soften the blow. They still throw you in the furnace, right? So I think a lot of us are probably discovering how to deal with that right now. See what are people saying? Legit, maybe only one or two of my friends aren't completely open about the mob stuff. Scary. Yeah, it's crazy. You just got to be smart. You got to play smart. I always tell people to just imagine. I mean, honestly, it's exactly what I said. You're in Babylon, you're in totalitarian China. You got to be smart. I mean, we'll all be held to account for like the things that we do and say, but there's like in moral philosophy, if you're under duress, it's not exactly like a moral decision. If someone breaks into your house with a gun and they're like, call this guy on the phone and lie to him, otherwise I'm going to shoot you, you're not going to be held accountable like for that lying. Of course, sometimes it wouldn't be worth it, if you're like blaspheming maybe or something, but I don't really think it's we're all dealing with a very strange system, so it's just something to keep in mind. This is why it's so important to have real life support network, real good friends in real life that you can depend on. Yeah. All my real life friends? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I have a few friends in real life, but not really, honestly. Not too many. None I can really like totally go hard on talking to. Okay. So I am going to throw in the spots on this leopard. So right now, that was nice little detour talk right now. But real quick, back to the visual world. So I just want to show you guys something really quick. Some of you guys probably know this, but it's just helpful if you guys are making pictures and stuff like that. My audio is low. Maybe I'll move the mic closer to me. Bum, ba-na-na. I can see the audio level. I could turn it up If anyone else feels my, I think actually because of my brushes, I've probably been facing away from the microphone, so I'll just move the microphone a little bit closer. Let me know though if it's still low. Okay, so drawing leopard. We're gonna put the spots on this leopard right now. I'll go in and put some orange in the eyes and stuff like that. But for the spots on the leopard, I just think this is kind of a cool little thing to know. So we have cheetah spots, there's leopard spots, and there's jaguar spots, and they're different. And the way that I remember them is it's like you go to get the cat, right? And the cheetah spots are just straight up dots. So if you got just the dots, you got cheated. You got cheated. This is very cheesy, but it's a way to remember it. My audio is low. Let me see. Let me just poke in really quick over here. Poking into the audio device. Says it's low. Really quick. I'll just really quickly open up my control panel. It's better now. It's better now that it's closer. All right. The first. It's because I'm using my the cord for my really good microphone wasn't working, so audio sounds good now. Audio sounds good now. All right, cool. So spots, just the dot. Also, maybe I'll talk a little louder. Maybe I'm kind of like mumbling too because I'm being very casual with you guys. So just the dots. Cheetah, you got cheated, you got cheated, just the dots. Leopard is the middle one, so leopard spots are kind of the ring ones like this. So that's what we're going to go for right here. And then the Jaguar, I always remember it because a Jaguar is kind of like a super fancy car. So the Jaguars are like the full rosettes. The Jaguar is where you get like the kind of like broken circles, but then you get like the bonus dot inside. That's the Jaguar. So that's how I remember it. Leopard, cheetah, you got cheated. It's the worst one. Jaguar, it's the most fancy one. So we're going to throw in these leopard spots right now. I just needed you guys to know. You're going to be out somewhere fancy. You're going to see a beautiful woman wearing a print, and you're going to say, hey, I know how to correctly identify what cat print that is because my friend has this painting show and he told me all about it. It's going to be so great. Okay, I'm going to quickly just drop in a little paint right here. Let's see, we took a little pause. Let's see what people are saying right now. If this forced talk can lead to some good, to suss out who might be like-minded and forge a connection with them. Yeah, the thing was, honestly, after a long time for me, I had to like pause and like reassess, and I was like, wow, this attempt to like suss out and find other like-minded people has completely failed. It did not work. I'll fix that little dot in a second. For the leopard spots, I kind of have two options. I could throw them in with the indigo. That's what I'm using as like this dark color here, or I could throw them in brown. I think I'm just going to throw them in... I'm going to throw them in dark blue. It's kind of functioning as black. The spots really like are black. So I'm just going to do it. Let's go for it. All right. Cool. And when you're putting in kind of like a natural pattern like this, you kind of have two options in my opinion. One for me is almost more like Eastern paintery, like especially ink drawings and stuff like that, where I could go like really quick and try and have the pattern blend together by virtue of being really freely expressive and kind of make it look like chaotic. You know, sometimes things that are chaotic have a certain harmony to them because it all is partaking of the same like level of chaos. So could go that route, or you can go the other way and like make it very painstakingly perfect put in, and then the pattern kind of has a very different, more like Western medieval feel if you're going in and putting it in that way. You can probably guess from how I'm describing it, we're going to go the first way. I mean, yeah, the quick way. Not because it's quick, just because actually I think it'll look doper, and it'll kind of give a certain type of variation in how the paint is handled on the page. For almost everything else, you can see obviously because you're watching me paint, I'm going in like carefully putting in, so I think having one thing be a little bit less measured will be a good effect actually. So let's do that right now. Cool. So yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting. Things kind of like work out. I should make sure I put this in, so I'm just gonna kind of go boom, 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 boom. Get those leopard spots. When I have one going the other way, boom. That was a good one actually. And I'm not too worried about it really even looking like a leopard. I kind of just want that, like, I always say this, but that kind of like medieval effect where it's just a pattern like coming through. like almost like a fabric, almost like a textile coming through. And we'll put in a few dots. That actually made it look a lot better. And the blue on the brown looks hot, actually. It looks dope. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I kind of feel like whatever topic I pick for the show often does have a relevance to like how I'm feeling and how it's going on. And just the idea of these guys like stuck in Babylon, like stuck in this kind of like evil city under this like evil empire was pretty interesting. And like as a Christian symbol, I mean, that's one of like the ultimate ones. Boom, boom. Going back in with the dots. Boom. Yeah, I feel really good about that. Boom. Get them in. And you can see as it dries, it becomes more blue. It's like black when I throw it down. When it dries, it becomes more blue. Cool. Get some on this guy over here too. Nice. And I'm hoping that when I outline, I'm going to outline the eyes. And I'm going to actually outline them in vermilion. I'm going to outline them in this really bright red. Just because I want it to pop. I want it to be like really hot looking. Yeah, it does look like the spots on an octopus. Cool. Once we wrap up this cat, we'll delve into the second thing, which I think is going to be substantially crazier. Not that this is a warm-up. It looks really dope, but just kind of getting through it just to get to the more beastie beast. So I'm going to outline these eyes. I'll throw down some details on the wings, and then we'll move on to the second thing. So I'm just going to quickly do this. Perfect. Cool. Oh, I didn't put any spots on the tail. Gotta do that. Boom. And I'm hoping these red eyes give it a little bit more of like a masculine flavor, honestly. I think they do. And I'm going to put that slit in the middle of the eyes. Cat eyes are very relevant to the next thing that we're going to be doing in a second. So I did look up a bunch of pictures of cat eyes. We're going to have a little Renaissance art cameo in a second. That looks dope. Man, the fat yellow eyes look so sick. I'm actually even wondering if I was going to put the slit in the middle, but it looks so dope like that. I think I'm going to hold off. Maybe we'll go back and put the slit in, but I kind of like these like headlight eyes that I have going on. I'm really feeling it, actually. So we're just going to leave those. I'm going to throw a few spots on here. Cool. Got kind of like an illuminated manuscript, four-winged leopard going on. And I was going to put a crown on him. In the scripture, it says that authority was given to him. But I don't know. I used the crown for so many like positive things. I didn't want to mix it up too much. And you know what I'm going to do to kind of marry the wings in here, because it kind of looks like they're floating actually? I'm going to put this like feather pattern on the wings. Like I said, I painted a bunch of angels this week. Kind of the next print that I'm doing, like the rosary print, the next kind of like fine art print from the studio is this angelic hierarchy print I've been working on. I posted it on Patreon the other day, actually. And yesterday? 2 days ago? I went in and like did all the angels. So I did all the 9 angels and drew a lot of wings. And I spent a lot of time thinking about how exactly I was doing them and stuff. Sort of the opposite here, painting in these like kind of like hellish beasts. Boom. And I'm going to outline the wings in blue, and then we're going to move on to this other creature. Someone said I can't tell if your name is Blah or Bia. Oh, it's Bia000. I think some of it is that this is the first time a lot of people have seen someone being killed, witnessing that. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, man, with all the media and stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, you know, when in human history was it precedented to straight up just see all these videos and just be sitting like right there? You know, it's one thing to even read about it, but when you're like seeing these videos and people are having them like, you know, on their phones, I think that's a big effect, you know. With the TV, that's another thing, you know, not to go all like Marshall McLuhan on it, but with TV, like TV is like a very like particular context of like taking in information. You know, you're in your living room and like you think of your TV, like this sounds stupid, but you think of your TV as a TV. You know what it is. You don't have any illusions about it. Even back in the day, people are like, oh, this is my TV. It's kind of like your fridge. It's like sitting in your house. But your phone is like very different, and I think that's kind of an underestimated aspect of how people kind of react to all this stuff differently. Like, You know, Instagram is a perfect example, man. Like, you're on Instagram. Like, imagine you're a normal person. You know, that's where you see photos of, like, Greg on his snowboarding trip and, you know, photos of your girlfriend's mom who just went hiking. And then, boom, like, the next thing in the feed right there on your phone is this video of this guy, like, getting killed. And that's your phone. Like, you always have your phone with you. You know, you look at yourself in it. You've seen, like, hundreds of selfies of yourself on it. No one would ever see a picture of themselves on the TV, right? Ever. That never happens. And I think that like subconsciously is like a very interesting aspect of why and how people are relating to all this stuff differently. Is that not that there's no merit to how they're relating to it, but you know, the emotional attachment to the phone and like the social media feed. I guess it's kind of cliche what I'm saying, but I think it really does affect it. I've noticed that personally because I have to go on Instagram, right? Normally I would never go there. It's not a place for me. But I have to go there to post images and, you know, get my art out there to people and stuff. So what I did was I just followed like 1,000 people randomly. I literally just went to like random hashtags and followed random people and saw who they were following. I just followed like 1,000 random people, not to get them to follow me, just because, you know, I don't know, I thought it'd be an interesting kind of social media sample just to see what people are posting and stuff. And what I noticed is that the Instagram ads, like, they work better on me than Twitter ads. I've never in my life ever thought of buying something or anything from a Twitter ad. Like, have you guys? Have you ever seen a Twitter ad and been like, that's a good idea, I'm gonna follow through on that? Probably never. And I've been using Twitter a long time for a lot of different purposes. It's never happened to me. But on Instagram, that's not the case, man. Like, I'm scrolling through the Instagram feed and I'll see like a shirt or something, or, you know, even like a spices or some food thing, and it'll have this like effect on me it's supposed to have, where I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And I really noticed that in my head, and I wondered why. And I think it's something about the format with like the pictures, and you're just scrolling along. So then when you turn it around and think about how people intake their news and stuff, I don't know. I'm sure what I'm saying is like kind of obvious, but it was interesting seeing it happen to me, where like I was looking at Instagram and I was like, oh, that's a cool product. And then I was like, wait, what's going on here? Pause, reassess. I just had an ad work on me. Let me reassess my life. All right, cool. That looks really dope, actually. I was kind of talking the whole time I was doing that, but that looks really sick. And I think what I'm going to do is, when I'm doing a picture, I always think of it as like a Polaroid. You kind of want it to all develop together. If you come to one side of the picture and, you know, make it 100% finished and go to the other side and then make it 100% finished, often they'll feel like these discrepancy. You'll feel the discrepancy between those two things. It won't feel like one married unified image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the four-headed leopard with the four wings, which honestly looks pretty tight. It looks pretty tight right now. And switch over to the other thing. So that's going to involve a little bit of a change up here real quick. Nice. We're already an hour in. That's okay. It's okay. I usually try and shoot for 2 hours, but we might go a little bit over. So here's the thing about this other creature. So this is pretty interesting. I'm just going to move this stuff actually really quick. Because let's break out the text. Boom. Got it right here. Do not get paint on the Bible. That's a big... not going to happen. So what it says about this other beast, so I'm going to read about it real quick. It's just like 2 verses. After this I looked, and behold, a fourth beast, fearful, terrifying, and exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and it was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling underfoot whatever was left. It was exceedingly different from all the beasts before it. So that's interesting. So it doesn't say what kind of beast it is, which is pretty interesting. It doesn't say it's a dragon, it's a bear, it's a leopard, it doesn't even use like some weird code name like it's a behemoth, it's a leviathan. It just says it's this really weird beast. So presumably it kind of defies like some kind of like classification, which is in and of itself interesting. There's a few other parts of the Bible where it just says like, yeah, it's this kind of crazy creature, like the narrator, presumably. I know the narrator is God, but let's say the human narrator is like, I kind of don't even know what it is. And it says it has 10 horns. It's pretty cool too. And this next verse is interesting too, because like something kind of happens here. I was especially noticing its horns, and behold, there was another horn, a little one. It came up among them, and the 3 horns of those before it were uprooted because of its presence. And behold, there were eyes like the eyes of a man in this horn, and it had a mouth speaking arrogant things. So it's this weird creature with iron teeth. It has 10 horns, and there's a little horn that comes up, and then 3 of the first horns are plucked up, and the small horn has eyes and is speaking terrible things. And also, the beast is crushing stuff under its feet. So a lot going on there. Just something kind of interesting, like an interesting note. So I thought about this a lot. I read a few commentaries. One of them was saying it's like Rome. It's like the Roman Empire. Another one was saying it's like these 10 kingdoms. And then the little horn that rises up amongst them is like the Antichrist. It's like this small leader, this small kind of innocuous seeming ruler that rises up among them. And then 3 of the kings fall, and then you have these 7 kingdoms with this like Antichrist type like evil ruler. Thought that was pretty interesting. One was saying it was kind of like a future-y prediction. Another book was saying no, actually, this is like this specific thing that happened with the Roman Empire, and here's these 7 kings, and this is exactly what it means. So I thought that was interesting. It's more interesting for me personally to view it as I don't want to say archetypal in the sense that it's just like some cool symbolism, but more of like an archetypal or future thing, or a thing that is true in more of like a cosmic sense, rather than like, yeah, this horn was, this Roman ruler, this horn was this Roman ruler, this horn, maybe that's the case, but I'm a painter, so I'd rather view it in more of like a cosmic sense. So I was thinking about how I was going to paint this up, and I was thinking that we'd kind of, I could just paint like a random, look at this aesthetic background right now. You enjoying this? This is real. I didn't just make this look this way. I could just paint up like something random, like just some weird blob, amorphous like creature or whatever. But I want to have a little cameo, information-wise right now. No one else is here with me, but informational cameo. Da-na-na-na. Got a really cool book right here. I don't know if people know that you can buy this, but it's a really cool book and I highly recommend it. Boom! The Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. Compiled and edited from the original manuscripts. Oh, yeah. So this is a really cool book. It's literally Da Vinci's notebooks. And in here you can go through and read his theories about light. That's really awesome. And he goes hard. I mean, obviously it's Da Vinci. Everyone knows he goes hard. But he goes really hard. Like, even to the point where he's like, if you're setting up a painting studio, you should have a circle window on the north side of the building and have a curtain hanging halfway through to get the best light for the longest amount of time in the day. He goes really hard. Got the sketches in here. It's awesome. It's really, really, really awesome. If anyone is getting into drawing, or actually even if you're not into drawing, if you feel like you're one of these people who you're just into a variety of things, you feel like you have some polymath element of it. Polymath, in case people don't know, is someone who just teaches themselves a lot of things and kind of has like the Da Vinci Renaissance man element going on, where you penetrate many subjects by virtue of their like underlying unity, you could say. Anatomy. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. So I'm definitely plugging this book really hard. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, so good. So good. Oh, I don't want to derail the whole show right now, but I mean, this is just great. I haven't looked at these pictures in a long time. Oh, the numbers with the face. Hello. Return to tradition department. Oh, yeah, dude. And he's got a lot of interesting sketches in here of like groups of figures and stuff like that. Okay, I don't want to get sucked in. There's a reason that I brought this out, but damn, this is awesome. Oh, look how dope this is. It just keeps getting doper. Let's look at a few more pages. Let's look at just a few more. Oh, 2 people over here riding a giant frog. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm on board is an understatement. Let's look at a few more. This is really, I'm having a really good time right now with you guys. Oh, these figures and things like that. Oh, perfect. Got like a battle or something going on over here. Okay, I'm glad the pictures ended because I could have just looked at that indefinitely. But it's a really cool book. I really recommend it. And the reason I'm breaking it out right now is I was thinking about this beast. I was thinking about how we were going to do it up. And I remembered that in this book, he actually discusses how to paint animals that you've never seen before that are fabulous beasts. So you can see there's a lot of topics in here. It's really awesome. How perspective works, proportions and movements of the human figure, botany for painters, practice. So it's under practice of painting, actually. It's on the next page, though. And you can see over here, wow, the camera's nice and focused on the book. This is great. So yeah, in here, and it goes hard on the lighting of white objects, backgrounds, aerial perspective. He was never in a plane, so that's really interesting, actually. But what we're looking for is, boom, of representing imaginary animals. It is subsection 585. So we are going to go there. There's not a picture in here. There's actually a really funny conspiracy theory, in case anyone wants really weird art history conspiracy theories where Da Vinci's drawing all these animals from life, and on that page he drew a little dragon, and a bunch of people were like, well, that means he obviously saw a dragon in Italy. And it's a really nice jumping off point. I don't know if I fully subscribe, but I enjoy that energy. I enjoy the kind of schizo energy, so I did appreciate that. Okay, we're still going. Boom. And he says, by the way, just to get off the plugging the book, he says a lot of really brilliant stuff in here that you're not going to hear elsewhere, like just whether it's little notes of like when you're painting, putting red against yellow will make the red look the most red. Thought that was really interesting. Or just little things you notice about your life, like out and about. Like he says, as things are further away, there's kind of like more water in the air, so things look more blue as they're more far away, which if you do art is like a very basic, obvious observation. But if you don't do art and you're out somewhere in your everyday life, if it's like a clear day, you can see that things that are further away from you are more blue. And it's really cool to like pick up these little observations that you don't realize that you've either noticed or never noticed about how you see things in like everyday life. But there's a little tiny section here, and that's why we took the book out. And it's also cool because it's in Italian. I don't speak Italian, but if I did, that'd be awesome. So it says, how you should make an imaginary animal look natural. It's really short, so I'm going to read it. You know that you cannot invent animals without limbs, each of which in itself must resemble those of some other animal. Hence, if you wish to make an animal imagined by you appear natural, let us say a dragon, that's convenient, take for its head that of a mastiff or hound, with the eyes of a cat, the ears of a porcupine, the nose of a greyhound, the brow of a lion, the temples of an old cock, the neck of a water tortoise. So he doesn't really go into it, but you can obviously deduce that what he means is that if you're making up a fantastic creature or an animal that you've never seen before, you should just combine other little parts of other animals, which is kind of obvious. I guess you would think of that, but it's also kind of cool to hear Da Vinci explicate it. And he gives a really weird formula here for a dragon. I wouldn't think of combining these animals. So actually what we're going to do really quick is I'm going to draw that right now just to see how it looks. It'll probably look pretty bad, honestly, because I don't really think those animals together will make a dragon in the particular way that I want to make it. So I'm going to take out this sketchbook. Oh, secret sketch in the sketchbook. Let's keep it going, though. Oh, it's the secret sketchbook. Don't derail the painting show. We are just going to get to... Yeah, I'm working on a picture of Thomas Aquinas right now. It looks sick, actually. I didn't anticipate showing you guys this, but I'm actually trying not to show you. I'm trying to get... Oh, okay, let's keep it going. Get to the end. Get a new fresh page. Okay, boom. Okay, so I'm going to move the painting palette really quick. And let's see what this Da Vinci dragon situation looks like. I think it's worth it to take a little experimental ride for just 1 second. And I'm going to grab a pen. I'm not even going to use a drawing pen, so we'll just do it kind of quickly. I'm anticipating this not looking good. So just for the record, I don't want someone to like clip this and be like, oh, look how bad Owen is at drawing. I'm anticipating this looking bad, but I thought it would just be cool to do really quick. And then we're kind of going to tweak it a little bit, and that's how we'll do our creature from the Daniel's vision. Okay, if you wish to make an animal, dragon. Okay, the head of a mastiff or hound. That right off the bat is in and of itself kind of weird to me because I don't really think of dragons as having a dog head, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to trust Da Vinci, and I'm using a pen instead of a pencil, but whatever. So if I was going to sketch that out lightly, I kind of think that the main hound face shape situation is like, kind of has this like long face, right? And it kind of comes into the nose, and then it kind of comes down. Wow, that's pretty good actually. Okay, it comes down like that, and then maybe we got the neck going on over here. It's kind of like how, I'll make it a little bit darker so you can see. It's kind of the shape of a hound's head to me. So we'll start with that, I guess. Take the head of a mastiff or hound with the eyes of a cat. That's actually really interesting to me because after I obviously read this just before I did the show. I'm not just like winging the reading right now. And after I did that, I was like, yeah, dragons really do have cat eyes. Even if you look at like modern like fantasy illustrations, they really do have these like cat eyes. And I'm going to put in this little darker shade around the outside. And you can see right now, it even kind of looks like a dragon's eye, even though I just drew it in as a cat's eye. So it's pretty good. Okay. Cat's eye. This is a weird one for me, the ears of a porcupine. So like I said, I obviously knew that I was going to be doing this. So I looked at the ears of a porcupine, and they're kind of like human ears. It's pretty weird actually, But some of the ones that aren't human ears, they kind of just have these like foldy ears up here like this. And I guess that kind of is like what a dragon's ear is kind of like. I'm drawing this in a little bit rough so you can see it. So I got the porcupine ear. I guess that's what we're just going to go with that. I don't want this to take too long. The nose of a greyhound. That's also really weird to me. I don't really think of dragons as having greyhound noses. But we're just going to roll with Da Vinci on this one. And I think kind of maybe what he's getting at, if I was going to guess, is that the dragon has this kind of like picked up nose. If you've seen a greyhound's nose before, it kind of is like up from its body. It's like this big fat nose at the front. And it has these kind of like big nostrils. So maybe that's what he's getting at when he says the nose of a greyhound. Maybe not. I'm not going to make it dark because then I think it will just look straight up like a dog's nose. But we're just rolling with it. The brow of a lion. So lions kind of have this like strong brow. I don't want to go full like comic book, so I'm not going to outline it, but lions have this like maybe even bigger than that. They have this kind of like strong brow situation going on. I guess that's kind of dragony. A few more combos. The temple of an old cock, as in an old rooster, obviously. That was kind of weird for me. I really did not know what he meant, but I was committed to this must not be like a completely arbitrary decision. So I looked at a lot of pictures of roosters, and especially old ones, and I think that what he was getting at was that in this like area over here, and also somewhat over here, I know this isn't the temple, but back behind the eye is like kind of the temple. Maybe I'm stretching here. The roosters kind of get this like scaly skin over here coming off the back of the eye that kind of reaches up behind, and I don't know, I guess that is kind of dragony. I'm gonna assume that's what he meant, because like otherwise you need like feathers or something back here, so I think that's what he meant, is this like weird scaly skin. I spent a long time looking up pictures of old roosters, so that's the best I got. And the neck of a water tortoise. Honestly, that was the best one, because when I looked up the neck of a turtle, it actually is a kind of dragony neck. It has this kind of like fat vein, and then otherwise it's these like big scaly chunks. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's kind of dragony for sure. So I'm going to throw in, obviously I'm just doing this kind of quickly. So yeah, you can kind of see it looks a little bit like a dragon, I guess, if I was illustrating like the cover of some like teen fantasy book or something, I guess. The dog's head is like the weirdest. We're not going to paint it this way, by the way, just to be totally clear. I just wanted to try this out. The dog's head is kind of like the weirdest part for me. I guess maybe you could like punch up like the angularity of it, but I feel like mine still looks like a dog. I feel like it kind of just looks like a dog. So maybe I feel like maybe we can get some like stuff going on back here. It's kind of dragony, I guess. And then the mouth, I wish he said what he uses for the mouth. The mouth is not really included. His dragons do kind of look like dogs. So maybe if I had some like jowly part like coming down over here. I don't know. It's close enough. And then I don't know. And then maybe get some big teeth. I guess it kind of looks more dragony. Maybe if we're in the Renaissance and I was like realistically painting it. Not really feeling this style. No one screenshot this. Don't send me this on Twitter. Also, just going to make a little note here. It's kind of interesting. When I think of dragons, I always want to put the whiskers in, but check it out. If you put the whiskers in, it just becomes like Asian style. It instantly becomes like hardcore, like Asian style dragon. All right. That was an interesting experiment, but we are not going to paint the dragon in that way. I just thought I would plug that because I thought that was really cool. He mentions that in that book. So bringing the picture back and stuff. What we are going to do, I'm kind of going to just use a little bit of that framework as like a jumping off point. To be honest with you, I want to make sure it looks dope. So I am not going to strictly adhere to using like a greyhound nose on this beast that we're about to use right now. But I'm kind of just going to use a dragon as like a jumping off point. Presumably Daniel would have known if it was a dragon and would have said that. So we can assume that it wasn't just a dragon. Nice. We got an approval in the chat. Fritz liked the dragon head. That's awesome. I always feel like I'm being really sarcastic. If someone gives me like a compliment, I'm like, oh, thanks Bob4217. I'm glad we have your approval. But actually, I'm actually not being sarcastic at all. All right, cool detour from Da Vinci over there, and let's just do it. I kind of want to sketch it in, but I want to also commit to being bold, to being forthright with the paint. So we're actually not going to sketch it in. Really, the only issue in the beginning that I actually didn't think of until this exact moment is the color. is the color of the beast. The beast has iron teeth. That's actually interesting too, because for me, yeah, someone asked about why Asian dragons look more friendly. It's actually a really interesting like comparative religion and theology thing that I'm definitely down to go into maybe as we're painting. Is the color of this beast right now, because it's interesting, is in my mind I'm almost visualizing it as like an etching, which is black and white, but we're doing a painting, and I'm looking into my mind and I'm trying to see what color I'm seeing this beast as, but it's not really happening. It's easy to like whittle out a few colors. I would do like dark red, but if we're leaning into the dragon thing, then it's going to be like a red dragon, which is like very Book of Revelation, and I don't want to like start confusing the image situation. I want it to be like a painting of like the beast from Daniel's vision. Doesn't say a color. Let's see, red, no. Orange, no, it's not really feeling that. It's got to be a dark color. I'm kind of feeling like this indigo is actually pretty dope, but then it's like black. I'm looking at my palette right now. Blue. Let's make it kind of like just a dark like slate. I think slate is going to be the way to go. Like a light slate color. That's what we're going to do actually. I just decided. So let's see. I'm going to see if I can get this Prussian blue like getting it going. Olive green. You know, I actually was thinking of green too. Let's see what the olive green looks like. Let's see what the olive green looks like. Because the thing is, if he has iron teeth, that's really interesting. I feel like that's one of the only details that's like specifically characterized. And if he has these iron teeth, then we want to make sure the iron teeth like stand out. And if I make him like slate gray, then the teeth are gray, and it's kind of like, okay. So let's see. Maybe olive green is the way to go. Maybe I can also, where's my brush? Something's up with my eyes today. I'm like looking at the brush and I'm like, where is it? Let's see. Let's see how we want to play this. Because I'm wondering if I can just get it thin enough on the page. Yeah, let's do the olive green. I'm going to lighten it though. I'm going to lighten it a little bit. Let's see what it looks like with white. Actually, so the olive green, I mentioned this like way back when we first started, but I ordered this large palette of paints at a time when the paint factory was like shut down, I guess, or something. So I had to order this set of paints from Japan, and it had a lot of colors I don't normally buy, olive green in here being one of them. I would mix an olive green normally, but I mean this particular tube called olive green, I don't normally have that. So with all the colors that I usually use, I'm very well equipped to be like, oh, here's how it'll interact with white, here's how it interacts with yellow, but I'm not really sure about the olive green. This is pretty good, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I just got it perfectly. I'm going to take my own advice from before. So just so you can get into the mindset of what I'm talking about and what I'm thinking, is that I'm looking at this olive green and I'm like, yeah, this is a really good hue. Hue as in sliding the color slider around. It's a good hue. It's actually a good value too in terms of how light or dark it is. We're using the color terminology. But it's too saturated. It's too intensely colored. I don't want it to look like this really intense green like that. So I'm actually going to take some yellow ochre and I'm going to mix it in, and that's how I'm going to cut the color down a little bit right there. And I should use a palette knife. I'm going to use a palette knife just so I can mix a large amount of color. But I think like a pale, weird kind of green, maybe even darker might be the way to go. Let's see. We'll nail this color. The color is going to be important, so it's kind of worth sitting down and making sure we get it right. Boom. And he's got the horns too. Oh, that's way too much yellow ochre. Way too much. It's okay though. So yeah, it's interesting he has these iron teeth, because iron in prophecies, especially from a long time ago, always makes me think of the future for some reason. It's like metal, and you know, I don't think he would have said like steel or something. So something about the iron always makes me think of the future. I'm not really sure why. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's this prophecy by this guy who says when the iron bird flies, that's when Buddhism will go to the West. And perhaps obviously people think the iron bird is like a plane. You know, maybe that's a little obvious. But just in general, iron stuff always makes me think of the future. We're a very like metal based culture, I guess. I don't know how they would see like plastic in a vision or something if they had that option. I'm going to mix a little bit more of this color. I think the pale green is the way to go. And I might even try and push for it to be like almost like a gray green. I think we're going to go with this kind of green, and then I will highlight highlight it with like more dark greens. I think that's going to be the way to go. Because I want those iron teeth to stand out, and I want to get it really big. And if the color doesn't look good, we can paint over it. I haven't really had a decision made on the show yet that I had to like walk back on that hard, but I think it'll look dope. And also it'll go with kind of, if I was also torn on if all the paintings would function together, you know, or if they would not. But if they do, then this green isn't in the other painting, so it'll be a nice like kind of offset. Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is good. I like this. Honestly, what I really want is I want to just add like a little bit of blue in there. I feel like I shouldn't, but I really want to. I'm just going to. Because the olive green is a yellow green. That'll be a blue green. I think it'll just kind of perfect. It'll kind of cut. Oh, that was such a good call. Wow. That was such a good call. It'll just kind of cut. It looks a little bit more intense on the screen than it actually is. But I'm just going to roll with it. Let's just roll with it. A robot could be seen as an unknown beast. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. There actually is a robot in a Greek mythology story. I love telling people that because I think it kind of goes unnoticed, but there is a Greek mythology story with a robot in it. So there is an ancient precedent for robots. That's just kind of interesting in terms of tracking like transhumanist stuff and tracking all that stuff. Is in the myth of Europa. We can go into it later if you guys want, but when Europa goes, if anyone looks into it, when Europa goes to this island, she gets a gift that is a robot. It's literally a robot. So check it out if you want. I don't want to get too derailed right now though. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking for the beast situation right now. I am going to kind of use the Da Vinci thing as like a jumping off point a little bit, but I also want it to be in my style, and I want it to fit with the style of the rest, and I want it to look cool. The mantra of painting, since man first picked up a piece of charcoal thousands and thousands of years ago, I want it to look cool. And I really want it to fit right in here. I'm playing kind of a dangerous game. Honestly, I should just pencil it out, but I just don't want to because it's kind of the style we've decided to go with. So I'm just going to kind of trust myself to be guided, and we're just going to go for it. We'll put it right here. We'll start right here. So I'm going to have the nose. And I think what Da Vinci was getting at with that greyhound nose was just having the nose be like a little elevated out of the face. So we will roll with that. And if I don't get like the feet crushing something, it's not a big deal for me. Whatever. You know, you can't fit everything in the painting. Actually, there's a few really humorous ways I saw earlier artists try and fit all the details into a painting. So if they couldn't do it, I'm okay not being able to do it live on camera. Okay, and I'm going to have it just be straight coming back on the nose. And then I want it coming up sharp. Boom. Perfect. So I want it coming up sharp like that. A little bit higher. Yeah. And let's just get it going back. We'll get it going back. Like that. That's good. And when I'm doing this, I'm also imagining like the skull inside. I've drawn a lot of skulls in my life, so as I'm making this creature, I'm imagining the skull in here. I could see it in my mind perfectly. Like here's where it comes down. It probably comes out a little bit like an alligator skull or like a dog skull, and there's the eye socket, and then that puts the jaw part right here, and then it would like open for the jaw. So I don't know. So that was interesting. I should say it. You can see it's drawing a lot darker than I thought it would, but it's all good. And I'm going to come down over here, and I want to give it this flat front face, and I want to make sure the mouth looks tough. Tough is really like the perfect word. A lot of times for me in like medieval pictures of dragons, they kind of look a little doofy, honestly. They look doofy is really just the perfect word. They look kind of doofy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick this up, and I'm going to really exaggerate how open and wide the mouth is because I want it to look dope, like I said. And it's going to come down. Yeah, nice. And the bottom jaw is going to be here. It's going to be flat. And it's going to come down. I like to really exaggerate this part of the mouth when I do this kind of creature just because I feel like it pushes it over the edge. Like you can imagine, you know, if I had the mouth like just like this, it kind of doesn't look as cool. I mean, look at the difference. It's a huge difference, actually. It's a huge difference. And then even if you get the teeth in here, it's kind of just like you can hear this mouth going like, yeah, but this one is like something more punchy about it. Every line is like really, really important when you're doing illustration stuff. So yeah, I really do like hardcore, like think about how every line is going to add up. And then the bottom jaw, to be honest with you, this is a space that I'm usually not as like confident throwing down. I never know if I should make it really big or what. Like the jaw, because of how you read like other human faces, you know, if someone has a weak chin, we all are familiar with like physiognomy. It kind of like communicates something about them, whether it's true or not. It communicates it like physically. But then with an animal, if you give it like a really big chin, sometimes it just looks kind of stupid. So I always want to land in the middle. I always kind of wish I could not paint it, which is not good, but I'm just going to kind of give it that jaw. And I'm going to have the neck. We'll deal with the neck later. But I feel good about that outline. And it's funny, it looks like a dog because the nose is like that right now, but it's not going to... Once I paint the whole face in, it won't look like that. But right now, it does look like a dog, which is cool with me. Got some messages. Are you familiar with Charles Barr drawing course? I'm not familiar with that. I have some books I recommend, but that doesn't mean that obviously that other things other people have are not worthwhile and stuff. I have some books I recommend, but I don't know. If you want to send it to me, I'll look at it for you if you want me to. Send it to me on Twitter though if you want, just if you want to. Iron Teeth made me think of Mechagodzilla. Yeah, definitely. Are you going to make the teeth natural or like they've been added to it, like Jaws from 007? I'll probably just go with the biggest teeth possible. Watching between taking calls at work. Nice vibes going on. Nice, dude. That's dope. Okay. And what I initially thought was that I would get some clouds in here, but I was worried I wouldn't have room to put the horns in, so I pushed the face down a little bit. I'm going to have the neck. How the neck attaches to the skull of an animal or of a human actually communicates like a lot about it. That's actually another drawing thing. Even if you look at your friends and how like their head is like sitting on their neck and shoulders, that sounds really weird, but it communicates a lot about them. If you had your friends lined up in the dark, you could probably recognize a bunch of them just from their silhouettes. So I wanted to make sure it boom. You want it to like confidently boom, like comes out like that. I always think of the neck as like plugging into like the back of the skull. Like you can even imagine it's like a cylinder like holding up the head. It would read totally differently if the head just kind of sloped down into the neck that way. It would read totally differently. And I'm just going to commit fully, and we're going to come around like that. And if I'll probably what I'll probably do is just have the paw or hand or whatever just like rising up as like a separate element, and it'll be crushing stuff underneath it. So we'll paint in the whole head, and then we'll get the paw. Shouldn't call it a paw. What do you call a paw for like a big scary animal? It's basically what it is, right? The hand. And I'm going to make the eye huge. Obviously, I want it to be like kind of intimidating looking. So it's going to have this huge eye. I'll probably make it orange. I feel like the orange with the green is dope. And then it'll kind of marry it to the panther over there. I use that phrase marry a lot. I'll just kind of like tie it together. And I'm just going to paint in the green. I'm going to paint in the green, and then we'll deal with like the details on top of it. Looks pretty good right now. It's a good base for what we're going to be laying down. Because I'm going to get... You got to imagine I'm going to get all the horns up here. It's going to look really tight. I'm going to have the speaking horn up in the front, and then I'm going to have the 3 horns that were plucked, and then we'll do something with the back. I don't know what yet, though, but we'll do something. Depends on how much room the horns take up, honestly. I'd like to get a tongue in there, too. I really like getting the tongue going on. And what I'm thinking is, so I'm laying down the paint thick up here in the front part of the head, but back here after... this little, actually I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to try and get it to like bleed out a little bit. I want to see if I can get that watercolor texture in the back of the beast, just because also he's in the corner, so I think it'll look good like visually if I get some like, start getting some texture variation going on. So I just dip my brush in the water, and I'm just going to let the water come down. As you dilute the paint, you can start to see the paper underneath it. So that's not a bell, it's me getting the water off the brush. You can start to see the paper texture. It's just to get a little textural variation, so the eye is like more interested as it like combs over the picture. That looks pretty dope. Nice. I think I have the saturation up a little bit on my camera because I can't tell. I guess this is what it looks like in real life. It looks a little grayer, honestly, but it actually looks dope. So I'll just roll with it right now. It's like powerful green. We'll get some like dark green on here too. So I'll throw down this in the front. Boom. Perfect. Has painting made you a body language expert? Who said that? Sorry, is painting? Oh, there it is. Has painting made you a body language wizard in real life? I don't know if I would say wizard, but it definitely got me very woke to how much body language really, really, really is like a real thing. I think everyone's seen like the generic kind of like manosphere, like picking up women observations, but body language and what it communicates is like a really, really, really real thing for sure. Also, it's really interesting because I know I mentioned this before, but you know, things always tie together topic-wise. Having the dog, I don't know if you guys have a dog, but dogs also read your body language really, really well. So if I'm standing there and I'm like, I have my shoulders back and I'm telling the dog to do something, it'll do it for sure. But if I'm kind of being like lazy and like hunched over and I'm like not standing like the alpha like pack leader, then the dog sometimes won't do it. It's really interesting actually. Okay. You can also just, the painting thing, I guess what's told me more is like, you can kind of tell what people are going to do sometimes via their body language. That's kind of interesting. Okay. What color am I going to put the horns in right now? Let's talk about the horns. So yeah, RKD said, what's the plan to show the small horn speaking arrogant things? Yeah. So I saw this painting. It was actually really funny. I'm not going to do this, but I thought it was funny. So it had like the beast, right? It didn't look like that, but it was close enough. It had the beast. And then the horn, the guy painted it in like this. It was from some Spanish painting from like 900 AD, I think. And then he just put a straight up like human head on it, which I thought was really funny. It's not what the text says, obviously. And then I had the other horns like on the back. We're not going to do that. I just thought that was really funny. The plan for the horn speaking arrogant things is that it's going to be on the front. And I'm going to put it in pretty big. And what I would like to do is if we're going hardcore on the symbolism, it is more diminutive. It is smaller and like less noteworthy, less visually grand than the other horns. So I'm going to make it a little bit rounded actually. And the other horns, they'll be bigger, but they're going to be pointier. It's kind of also how it like communicate like subtly. It's like diminutive stature. And it says eyes like a man. So I don't think I'm going to be able to fit them horizontally like that, even though actually I could actually. It might be dope like that. I'm kind of tempted now that I just did that. And I'll put like a mouth on it. Maybe I'll even put some teeth. I don't want it to be too like comic book style. Maybe I won't put the teeth. I'll have the tongue though for sure like that. And then there could be something coming out of his mouth. It could be like smoke. Sometimes that's cool. I was also thinking maybe like a lightning bolt could be tight. Maybe both even. That actually looks pretty dope together. And then we could kind of make this like gray smoke. And smoke always looks really good with the watercolor. So we could put the eyes like that. But actually what I was really thinking was that we'd have the mouth. This line wouldn't be there, obviously. And I was thinking it would be dope if it just had an eye like this. Although technically it says eyes of a man. So maybe we should put it in this way. I don't know. We'll probably wing it, actually. Probably wing it. What's the plan to show the small... Oh, I just read that. Do you have a favorite mythical animal? That's an interesting question. I'll talk about that while I'm painting in the horns. Okay, what color am I going to throw these bad boys down in? I feel like I should just use yellow ochre. It's like a very horn color. Maybe the umbers, though. Let's see. I do have raw umber. Let's take a look. Let's figure it out together right now. Maybe the raw umber will be a better horn color. So again, the yellows, the raw browns are more yellow. Let's go with this color. Let's go with the raw umber. And I'll pull out the yellow ochre just so you can see the difference actually on your screen. The yellow ochre. I always think of this as like sandy dirt, and this is just like regular dirt. That's the intense color classification system in my mind. So I'm going to get all the green off this brush right now. Just the eyes give it a creepy robe look. Yeah, it does have kind of like a creepy... Yeah, everyone said it looks like a hood. Yeah, it looks kind of creepy. But do we want that? Maybe you know, if it has kind of a creepy vibe, maybe that's good actually. Or maybe it's too like, you know, maybe that's kind of colonized by like the KKK thing, which we don't really want. Don't really want that in the picture. Don't really want that. So let's see. What I'm going to do is if I do it right here, so if I give the horn speaking this whole space, that's definitely enough space. So I'm going to throw down the 10 horns in the back. Sorry, the 7 horns in the back right now. So that's what we'll do right now, just to get it out of the way. And we'll see how the color looks. Maybe we'll make the smaller horn a different color, just like a little bit lighter or something. But we'll throw down these 10 horns in the back just to get it going. So someone asked me, do I have a favorite mythical creature? I like some of the ones that get like less play. I like some of the ones that are less used. There's an animal called a hippogriff that is I'm going to make these big too, by the way. Just make them huge. Why not? They'll look awesome. And then if we don't fit them all, whatever. We don't fit them all. But it's better to kind of lean in and make them cool. Also, we want to make sure that the small one is smaller than the big ones. There's an animal called a hippogriff. It has like the face of an eagle and the wings of an eagle, but a horse body. So it's kind of like a griffin. Wait, is that what a griffin is? No. Maybe it doesn't have wings. It's obviously not my favorite because I don't even remember. But I like some of the ones that get less play like that, where it's like a little bit more of an atypical combination. A hippogriff. How does a hippogriff differ from a griffin? A griffin is eagle head, eagle wings, lion body. Yeah, that's what it is. And then a hippogriff is eagle heads, eagle wings on a horse body. Not a huge difference. This knight Orlando rides off on a hippogriff in some story, rescuing some maiden. That's probably not my favorite though. I mean, I don't know. It's Eastern, but I really like the Makara is the thing. The Makara is really tight. That never really left me from studying like Eastern art. A Makara is the head of an elephant mixed with the head of an alligator, and it's all coming out of like a snail shell, and they guard like temples and stuff like that. It's really like an elephant alligator. Most people don't know about the snail shell thing. Makara is pretty cool. What else is cool? What else are some cool mythical animals? I used it in this guy's crest. I mentioned it last week too, but there's a mermaid where the top is an owl and then the bottom is the fish. That's really tight. Boom. I like a lot of the unfortunate. I don't want to say unfortunately like it's bad, but what's interesting is some of the Eastern ones. Maybe some of the Western ones have this too, and I just never thought about it. But some of the Eastern ones have like an intentionally paradoxical element. Like there's an otter. This is in Tibet. And an otter eats fish, right? So then it's an otter with a fish head because it's like the thing that catches it. And then it's like the predator and prey mixed together. So sometimes I've tried to use that. I've drawn like foxes with like a rabbit head. That's one of my favorite ones that I use sometimes. I don't know. Nothing's really coming to mind though except those things right now, honestly. What are some of your favorite fiction novels? Do you like genre fiction? Maybe I'm showing my completely and total plebeian status, but I'm not sure what you mean by genre fiction. I just make pictures. I do like fiction, though. I haven't read fiction in a long time. I started reading theological texts and sacred texts, and I haven't read a lot of fiction in a long time. I don't have a problem with it, though. People get me fiction books. I just haven't read them. The last fiction book someone bought me was Dune. This guy that stayed at my house bought me Dune and was like, dude, you gotta read this. And it's on my shelf. The last fiction book I read it again, was the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Anton Wilson. It has a lot of like really blasphemous imagery in it, so I'm not like totally recommending it, but it's probably the last fiction book I read. I have some interesting thoughts about it, but I'm not going to go into it right now because I'm thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I only fit 5, but it looks really tight with the size, so I don't really feel bad about the size. I could do the medieval thing and put the 2 more. Oh, I could put them coming off the back. That would actually be kind of chill. I only need to fit 2 more. Or I could put 1, 2, and get the horn speaking arrogant things in the front. That's what we're going to do. That's going to be sick, actually. Otherwise, that space in the front's going to be like dead space anyway. Hippogriffs unfortunately colonized by Harry Potter. I didn't know that. I'm actually totally ignorant to the Harry Potter thing, which is great. But then sometimes people tell me stuff like that and I don't know. Oh, yo, you know what one of my favorite creatures probably is? Is the basilisk. The basilisk is sick. Where it's like the rooster head and then the... Sometimes the basilisk is like that. Or like a cockatrice, is that what I'm thinking of? Where it's like a rooster head and like the snake body. That one's pretty cool. Basilisk can be a few different things. And then it freezes you in stone sometimes, right? Someone's going to be like, yeah, it's in Harry Potter too. But that's a good one too. I like that it freezes you into stone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I feel like I should have a good answer for that. I'm kind of still fishing, but nothing's coming to mind. Probably because I'm actively painting right now. Boom. Okay. There we go. Boom. Okay, perfect. So we got the 7 horns, the 7 kingdoms. Now we're going to get this arrogant horn in the front. And then we'll have the 3 other horns plucked. Those can just be floating anywhere. Nice. I'm actually feeling how that looks right now. If we go hard, I can actually put these little stripes in on the horns and it'll look really sick. Okay. Before we move on to the horn in the front, I want to make sure this beast is looking how I want it to look. And right now it is not looking how I want it to look. So let's get it going right now. Where's my indigo? Perfect. Someone said, I don't know if you're into video games, but the Witcher series has some cool stuff. I don't really play video games anymore. I don't like aggressively like talk shit about it, but I don't really play them anymore. It's funny you mentioned The Witcher though, because a Witcher song came up on my Spotify playlist for some reason. And I was working and I was like, wow, this goes hard. I was like, what is this? And I pulled it up and it was like The Witcher 2 soundtrack. It's interesting. Is this the right color? Yeah, it's indigo. It looks really, really clear and blue, more so than normal. Okay. So I want to make sure that I get this looking like kind of tough right now. It's kind of what I'm thinking. So what I'm going to do, I should put the iron teeth in before I do these lines, but I'm just not going to, honestly. So I'm going to get these lines going. I want this to be straight. Boom. And I want this to curve up a little bit more. Yeah. And then what I'm going to do up here, the flatness is not really doing it for me. I'm going to make these kind of like artificial indentations. Boom. Boom. I don't want it to look like just straight up like a lizard because as we discussed, it's kind of like a nondescript creature. Presumably Daniel had seen a lizard before, so we don't want it to look just straight up like a lizard. And then we'll get the back coming down over here. Cool. Those divots at the top did a lot, actually. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some, like, I guess you can call them, like, flourishes. I guess that's what you could call them. Okay, so I'm going to throw this down in the front. Boom. 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 Perfect. It's perfect. You always got to be confident when you're making lines, for real. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I want one coming up like this. Perfect. Dope. I don't want it to read as a mustache. It kind of does a little bit, but it's okay. Because I'm going to put a few more in. So I don't think it'll totally read like a mustache. And I'm going to put one on the eyebrow in too. This is very typical for dragons, and it kind of fits the Da Vinci saying we should have a lion's brow thing. So perfect. I'll make the eye like orange or yellow, some like really powerful color. And I just want to pick up that little bit right there. Perfect. And have this come down and around. Yeah. Okay, that's looking pretty dope. We're getting there. And I'm going to put in some of that texture that we talked about with the rooster. Just put in kind of just ambiguous. I guess it'll look like scales, but I kind of want it to be like a little ambiguous exactly what it is. I want it to be like a weird dragon. I knew it would look kind of like a dragon. Maybe one day we'll come back and paint like a totally unprecedented creature, but what I was going for was kind of like bizarro dragon. It's also honestly just a victory for me to paint a dragon in any kind of style that doesn't have that kind of doofy flavor. I know I used that word before, but sometimes they just look so like, I don't know. Sometimes they just don't have the look that you want. Basilisk is in the second Harry Potter book. Perfect. Perfect. Great. Love it. It actually doesn't matter to me anymore. But back when I was into like the occult stuff, that did kind of frustrate me. So actually, I guess it's good that it happened. What do you think about basilisk is used to refer to thought demons? Yeah, like what's that guy's name? Rupert's basilisk? Rothko's basilisk? Is that what it is? Is his name really Rothko? Something like that. Okay. And what I'm thinking is over here, I kind of want to just throw down some like fat scales. I kind of just want to, well, here's what I'll do. I'll have it be like kind of ambiguous what it is. I'm going to paint this kind of like hair, like releasing. Yeah, that looks really good. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Oh, looks great. Perfect. Paint this kind of hair releasing. And then I kind of want to just throw in the scales. Boom. 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 So it has like hair and scales. Gives us a nice like level of ambiguity. Boom. Perfect. You're not supposed to say the name of the basilisk? I actually didn't know that. Oh yeah, that's what it is. I know about that. It's like some future AI thing where some AI will get the power to. I think I'm gonna butcher it, but I'll tell people that don't know. It's something like a thought experiment where eventually the AI and there will be a form of AI that is powerful enough to that will take over the world and will be able to retroactively punish you through time for supporting it or not supporting it or something like that. I probably just butchered it, but the idea is that you're not supposed to talk about it because then the AI will know that you knew about it. And like if I said right now, well, fuck that AI, I'm not really, sorry, I shouldn't curse on the Christian painting show, but if I said, F that AI, I'm not going to support that rising to power, then in the future when it does, it'll be able to come back and like retroactively punish me. But the thing is that I reject transhumanism totally. I reject the singularity. I really reject all that stuff. So I'll do it. I'll say I curse the basilisk AI from the future. Let it come back and retroactively punish me. I don't care. I'll answer for that. Gleefully. Gleefully will I answer for that. I'm going to put this line down over here. There we go. That just did it. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I actually feel really good about that. I was actually really worried it was going to come out looking kind of like stupid looking, but actually it looks pretty dope. I'm going to throw down the straight cadmium orange eye. I'm just going to throw down the full cadmium orange. That is like the most powerful orange color I have. Oh, is camera focused? Oh yeah, it is. Cool. All right. Some people who don't believe in time travel will say it'll make a copy of you in a computer. Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, it'll make like a copy of you in the future that'll like torture it. Yeah, but that won't be me. I reject the whole like transhumanist paradigm. If some AI like 300 years from now made like a carbon copy of my DNA or something, that just wouldn't be me. So that's a problem for Owen in the future. Owen in the future. Well, it won't even be Owen. It'll be just some meat sack that happens to have my DNA, and I will feel compassion towards that creature, but it won't be me. So what are you gonna do? The dragon looks cool. People are down. Nice. Yeah, it'll look doper when I outline the horns too. Right now, it's kind of looks like a background, but when I outline it, it'll look dope. I have no idea how far we are in, but presumably we're pretty far. And I mostly talked about the stuff I wanted to talk about. So if anyone wants to ask me something, we're kind of at like that point in the show. If anyone wants to ask me something, they can. Or I can just kind of keep riffing about what we're painting. But mostly I just want to talk about like the interesting sync up of like Babylon symbolism and kind of like where we're at right now. The orange eye is going to be very dark. So what I'm going to do is paint the orange ring on the outside. I want to have the cadmium yellow ready to go. I am not being a good painter. I'm putting back my paints the way I should, so I don't see the cadmium yellow, but it's fine. We'll use lemon yellow. And I will, actually, I really want the cadmium yellow though. Where is it? Should be somewhere. There's enough over there. We'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to paint the orange ring on the outside, and then we'll brighten it up with the yellow in the center. And it'll be good. Because this will dry pretty dark. But it'll look dope. So now I'm going to quickly grab some of the cadmium yellow from over here. Boom. Get it going. You guys see that? Yes. Alright. Just want to lighten it up a little bit. Looks like an iguana. Yeah, it kind of does. Kind of does. Cool. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, that is exactly the look I was going for. I want it to be like just dark and intense enough that it would have kind of like a freaky vibe, and I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with that. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to outline the horns. And then we're looking good. We're looking good. I don't know how far we are. I'm not going to pause to check the time. I try and make these 2 hours. They've been going longer. I thought this one might be a little longer just because it's like a lot more it's a lot more stuff. So maybe we'll try and land at 2.5 hours. It's 2 hours right now. So I'm going to quickly throw in the horns. Someone said, can you go off on why you don't like transhumanism? Yeah, it's for a variety of reasons. One sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. I'm going to quickly outline these. We'll throw in the iron teeth. We'll throw in the horn. We'll throw in the background. We're going to kind of start trying to like land the plane, even though we're very far from landing the plane. We're not that far. Yeah, honestly, I just kind of like reject it for a variety of reasons. One, I just kind of don't really believe it's going to happen. Life has taught me to be like very skeptical of tech and computers and all that stuff. So like, on the one hand, like, yeah, I'm sure the government could build like a killer robot. Like, I don't like totally deny technology, but on the other hand, like, I don't know, I feel like consumer technology just like fails so much and like machines just break so much that I just kind of reject these ideas of like that you'll be able to like reliably upload your consciousness to some like computer. I just don't really think that's plausible. I don't think it's really going to happen, honestly. That is not a philosophical argument. That is just my own feeling. So while I do think that like death robots are coming, I don't think that there will ever be a time where we basically transition over into some like sci-fi future. I don't really think that's going to happen just because I don't believe in technology that much. Then there's also the fact that I think that like a human soul is like the irreducible aspect of human experience. So when you get into these weird thought experiments of like, I'm going to upload my brain to a computer, I'm like, you're not. Even if you could do something like that, I think that because human life and what makes you human is not reducible to materialism. I reject materialism like in toto. That means like totally. It's kind of a pretentious way of saying it, sorry. I reject materialism like totally. So yeah, I think even if you could like scan my brain and, you know, prove to someone that it's just a series of like these code functions and like, look, we put it on this computer, I just totally reject that. I don't think it would be me or anything like that. And also I think that more philosophically and more like practically, I think that God made humans. So I don't think that these things that people are trying to do are actually good, even if they were totally and completely plausible. I think that humans were given like certain limitations for a reason, that like attempting to transcend those limitations is just not gonna, either it won't end well or it's conceived from an ill place, or, you know, I don't really know how to phrase it, but I just don't really think think that's good. I think that, you know, we have technology to a certain extent, but, you know, like if anyone doesn't know, if you go back and read people even from like the 60s or 70s talking about the future and stuff, I mean, you can point blank read people that will say like, yeah, soon no one's gonna die. People won't even need to die anymore because we're gonna have such high tech that we'll be able to stop cells from decaying and humans will just live forever. So get ready for it, you know? And whether or not that's like, you know, whatever you think of that, that feeling, I guess you could, someone surely could say that that's like a caricature of it. Someone could say like, oh, well, that's not really what transhumanism is about. But I feel like that vibe of like, get ready because the tech is about to take us to the next level. I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but I kind of just see it as like slightly like Luciferian and kind of like Gnostic in a way. In fact, if anyone wants a cool like angle or something interesting to go down, I think that drive of like being able to transcend human limitations is like eternal, and actually an idea I've kind of been working on this idea for a little while, but it's just basically this idea that I had that, like, you know, that idea of man merging with what is beyond man. So I'm going to put in these iron teeth right now. I'm just going to make them huge, just huge gray iron. I never really use like straight gray. I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue. Iron's not really blue though. I'm actually not going to do that. Iron's more of like if it has a color, it almost has a little bit of like a red hue to it. It's like it's rusty. Yeah, so this idea of like humans being able to transcend, but more specifically merge with something that is beyond human has kind of always been with us. But here's something interesting. It's always been with us, but it's taken different forms based on what humans at the time see as that which is larger and more powerful and more eternal. Really, more eternal would be the key word than humans. So if you go all the way back, like to pre any technology, what were the gods? You know, what do you see when you go back and look at ancient gods and stuff like that? They're half human and they're half animal, because at that time, nature and natural forces were what was perceived as being larger than humans and more powerful and more eternal, more beyond time than humans, right? But then eventually, once humans kind of like conquered nature even a little bit, then you get like what's referred to as like the more like classical Gnostic systems, you know? And then you get these creatures that are like half human, half divine. They're half, you know, angels maybe, or half spirit, or, you know, half gods or something like that. You have this whole era where the gods stop being half human, half animal, and what people are aiming for becomes half human, half divine. But then when people stop when people stop believing in that stuff, then you get transhumanism, because what's seen as more eternal and larger and more powerful than humans is like technology and machines and industry and man's creations. So then you get transhumanism, where now humans are like merging with technology. So I don't know if I really explained that very well, but it's something I've been kind of like cooking on and working on for a little while, is that, you know, you always have this idea of like human hybrids, but as we move from like prehistory forward, what the human is hybriding with changes based on what is seen as being beyond time and beyond the human being situated in time in that particular time period. It's like the simplest way I could explain that. But yeah, all right, so these huge iron teeth. Nice. So yeah, I just basically reject transhumanism totally. I reject it like completely and totally. Also, again, on a less philosophical level, I guess it actually does kind of fit with like these apocalyptic beasts that we're painting. I just think I think it's an expression of like rebellion against like, I mean, I could sugarcoat it and say rebellion against like nature and natural forces, or I could just say like rebellion against God. I mean, I think that's what it is. When people kind of give me this spiel of like, yeah, like, you know, we're about to be like unchained and we're gonna like colonize Mars and like do all this, I'm like, you know, whether or not you actually think that, I think the motivation for it as like the basis for a worldview is, you know, I mean, I hate when people say Gnostic so often because it almost doesn't mean anything anymore, but it's like kind of Gnostic. It's kind of like, what I really mean by that, I'm trying to just like, before I get off this topic, I just want to make sure I say what I'm trying to say. It's like an inability to accept man's place in the universe. That's really what it is. I think that's like the root of like, you know, we were talking about like the social problems and stuff before. I think that's really the root of like so many like problems, is man has an inability to accept his like place in the universe. And I see transhumanism as like just another expression of that. It's just another expression of man being like, well, we're not really caged in by these like laws and situations that are beyond our control, because soon, like, I'm gonna put an iPhone in your brain, bro. So I reject it for a variety of reasons. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to throw in this horn right now. See if we can land. We are probably not going to land at the 230 landmark, but we are going to try. We're going to try. I'm going to paint in this horn right now. Actually, we might, because once I paint in the horn, put some teeth on the leopard, put in Daniel, throw down the background. It's kind of a lot, but not really. So this looks dope, though, man. This looks dope. If I went back, I don't know what I would do with the color. I'm really feeling it, but I don't know. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna paint in this horn. It's like lateral now, so it's a little bit different. And I'm gonna put in the mouth. Boom. Lateral as in horizontal. Cool. That was me going off about transhumanism. I always enjoy the end of the show. Not that we're ending right now. We'll end soon, but I always enjoy that latter half of the show because it's kind of like I got out like my little like not my monologue, but you know, we talked about the symbolism. We all learned something together. We read the Bible, and now we can just kind of talk about whatever. Okay, so I'm putting in this guy's mouth. Someone asked me not to get off topic, but what The F is Kabbalah. Every time I read about it, it just seems super vague and like it amounts to a fancy diagram of reality. Yeah, have we gone over that on the show before? I don't know if we have, honestly. Shortest answer possible is that it is really hard to figure out what Kabbalah is because it is a variety of different things to a variety of different people. It kind of fits in with everything we've been talking about in a weird way, but you know, what a Jewish mystic in the 1300s will tell you Kabbalah is not the same thing that, you know, that if you open up Golden Dawn or like Aleister Crowley, like Western occult magic will tell you what it is. So that's probably why you're like confused about it. It's really like, so I'm going to put this outline in. It's not dry yet, but I'm just going to put the outline in. I'm kind of playing with fire right now, but it's all good. So yeah, it depends on who you're talking to and stuff, basically. That's why. That's like my short answer. If people are interested, I could talk about Kabbalah. I don't know if I've talked about it before, but that's why. Boom. Boom. Perfect. And yeah, like you said, in modern Western occult, like anything post 1900 in the West, yeah, basically it's like an Excel spreadsheet that you just like lay information over. That's really what it is. Okay. Got the horn, got the guy. I'm going to put in the eye on the... Although I kind of like the no slits on the eyes. I kind of like it, honestly. But I'm going to put it in, especially on this beast over here. I'm just going to paint it in. Boom. Perfect. That looks pretty tough. Looks pretty tough. Yeah. It looks sick. Okay. Here's the thing. It looks pretty dope right now. In the description in the book, he has his paw up and he's crushing... I keep saying paw. I don't know what word to use. He has his like foot up and he's crushing all this stuff, but I'm kind of worried that if I try and put it in like it's crushing stuff, it's going to look kind of whack, honestly. So I don't think I'm going to do that. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start thinking about landing the plane and getting it in line with the previous image. I've never done two images spread over one session, so I'm not thinking of them as being married necessarily, but maybe they will go together. I don't really know, but I think I am going to put Daniel in here dreaming this whole scene going on over here. This one's a little bit darker though, but let's just go for it. I'm gonna keep pushing forward. Probably do like 20 more minutes right now. Okay, so I'm going to throw in Daniel over here sleeping. Same as the last image. And I kind of put him a little close to the horn that's supposed to be speaking. So see how I want to handle that. And I really like putting in him how I did it last time, where it's like almost like a archetypal figure. Like you can almost like read yourself into it. Like he's like dreaming and just seeing these crazy things, but it's not really like about him. It's kind of what's cool about a lot of the prophets. It's like really not about them. They're kind of just like a microphone that God like picks up, or like a screen that God like throws these images onto. But who they are, I don't want to say it's incidental. It's kind of like disrespectful, but it's not like totally 100% like about them, you could say. Perfect. And when people are sleeping, I like putting this one leg up. I don't know why. I think it kind of like communicates well that they're like sleeping. Yeah, if anyone wants to ask me anything, you can ask me anything else. I could go off about Kabbalah, I guess. I don't know if it's like too much of a detour. I don't know if anything's too much of a detour anymore, really. Okay, boom. Okay, that's tight. Okay, I really like how this is going on. I like how this is going on right now. And I gotta start thinking about how I'm gonna like space things out here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna utilize this cloud line situation that I have going on, and just kind of use these clouds to like break up the space. I actually used this motif in the images that I was doing of the angels in my angelic hierarchy image, so maybe that's why I'm thinking about this like cloud outline situation right now. Boom. Boom. Perfect. I got a little paint on my glove, but it's not a big deal. Okay. Now, what I'm really thinking is how I want to like frame the space. On the other image, I gave the animals like halos, but that's not really like appropriate here. It's not really like the vibe here. What I'm going to do to bring them together is I'm going to use the raw. I'm going to use the same color I used for the leopard over here on the horns over here. You talk about Asian and European dragons. Yo, yes, that's what we should talk about because I'm painting in the dragon. Perfect. I was just floating and I was like, where's my topic that I'm trying to land on? Yeah, I think the difference between the conception of Asian dragons and European dragons is really interesting. Maybe I'll go off on Kabbalah too. We probably have like 20 more minutes before I wrap this up, so maybe we'll get to both. But the dragon thing actually is super relevant because I'm painting one, so I will talk about that for a second because I think that the difference between the European conception of the dragon and the Asian conception of the dragon is really, really, really interesting. I mean, maybe there's not that much to say, but in the Asian stuff, it's like a positive figure, and then in the Western stuff, it is a little bit more like psychological and equated with like a negative figure, which I think is like really interesting. Even the snake, that's like a really interesting one too, because in Eastern stuff, I mean, the reason that I'm not equating them, but tying them together is that the serpent and the dragon are connected in many cultures in many ways. Obviously, there's like a connection there, right? In fact, this is just kind of interesting. In some of the oldest images of the dragon you can find from like ancient Chinese jewelry, it might not even be jewelry, but the dragon is carved in jade and it actually has a pig head from like thousands and thousands of years ago. So that's just something interesting you can check out if you want to. These dragons with these like pig heads. Anyway, though. Yeah, I mean, basically in the Eastern stuff, it's like a wisdom thing. So, like, where I have my main area of study, which would be like esoteric Buddhism. It's not my main area of study. It's my main area of study within the Eastern paradigm of different spiritual systems. There's the Nagas. They're like these snake women. Oh, you can't even see these stripes. Maybe you'll be able to see them when they dry. It's okay. I'm just going to mix a little white in. So yeah, so in the Eastern systems you have the Nagas, right? And the Nagas are like these underground women creatures who are kind of like half snake who like keep wisdom. And there's even like particular books that they've like given people, and there's like philosophers that have like come into contact with them, and like supposedly the Buddha like went down there and like left some like books with them. And even outside of Buddhism, they're in Hinduism too. Like they're like underground snake mermaids that are like associated with wisdom kind of. But then even with the deities, you know, you can go into Hinduism and there's deities like associated with the snakes, like Shiva is associated with snakes. So it's not as cut and dry there that it's negative. In fact, it's like overwhelmingly positive kind of. And then in China, dragons were like the royal symbol. In fact, in the Chinese court for a long time, there were like a few hundred years where you could just make a living as a dragon painter. You could just paint dragons. That would be like literally the only thing, because so many people had or needed like dragon paintings, which I think is really interesting. But then obviously in the West, that's like not the case at all. I'm going to paint the eyes in on this guy. I feel like I'm going to give him red eyes. I'm going to give him those little creepy eyes that I drew in the sketch. I could put the vertical eye in, but the thing is, in the text it specifically says he has the eyes of a man. So actually, maybe I shouldn't put in the red eyes because it says he has the eyes of a man. So I'm actually just gonna put in dark blue. I'm just gonna take the indigo over here. I actually need a little bit more. So yeah, but then in the West, the dragon has like a totally different symbolism. It's something to be defeated. I haven't actually really seen that much in the Eastern context of the dragon as something that needs to be defeated, which I think is interesting. It's almost something that you gain wisdom from. My favorite iteration of the dragon archetype, so like everyone's familiar with like, you know, the knight who goes to kill the dragon and the dragon's guarding gold and stuff like that, but I think an iteration of it that most people don't really consider, the little human eyes, so weird, nice. I'm gonna give him a tongue too. That most people don't normally consider is in some versions of St. George's story with the dragon, he doesn't kill the dragon, he tames the dragon, which is totally different. So he doesn't slay the dragon, he yokes it. He puts a yoke on the dragon and has the dragon plow the fields, which is another very interesting like archetypal aspect of that story and the symbolism there. So when I think of the dragon, I think of that a lot. I think of the fables and the fantasy element. I should say fables. They're not really fantasies. Like the fable element of it as the knight slaying the dragon. But then I always remember there's this like twist on it where the saint tames the dragon. And then when he tames it, what does he do with it? He plows the fields. He like uses it to get succor from the earth, to get sustenance from the earth. It's like a very interesting. I'm sure you could go really hard, like Jungian style, and like totally and completely unpack that. It's really interesting. I always found the call of Christ to be shrewd as serpents to be really interesting, since the serpent is usually associated with the negative in Christianity. Yeah, it is interesting. Well, it really just depends on what's meant by the word shrewd there. It would actually be really interesting to see what the Hebrew word is. I don't know offhand. Because shrewd, even in English itself, is a word that means a lot of different things. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a bigger brush because I'm going to start laying down areas of color. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to go with the smoke motif that I mentioned before. We talked about how I was going to make the horn in the front saying terrible things, and I think I'm just going to put in some smoke. Partially because I like how it looks in the watercolor. Also partially because it's like ambiguous. It's like, is it terrible things or is it just like smoke coming out of his mouth? So we're going to come in like this. Boom. Yeah, that's what I wanted. That nice like watercolor effect right there. Come in, get a little more on the brush. Boom. Boom. That's good. This is dope. And actually, I'm going to do something kind of cool. I'm going to have the smoke coming up into the leopard world too. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That looks nice. Cool. Then I'm going to make one super light. I'm going to get the color off of it and just go in. Yeah, this is like smoke just like pouring out of his mouth. Cool. That looks awesome. That looks awesome. Okay, so we're almost done. I'm going to grab this huge brush right here. Yeah, smoke. Yeah, you can see, someone said the smoke looks nice. Thanks, man. Yeah, utilizing the watercolor element is what I'm going to try and start doing more. I've been doing it a little bit, but when I'm painting live like this, I've really been balancing like the keeping it loose versus keeping it like tight and controlled. So sometimes you can really tap into the keeping it loose, and you can see showing the paper through gives it that like real smoke element. So what I'm going to do right now, I want some blue on here, and I'm just going to come in and put in the kind of like night around Daniel. I'm going to put in the night around Daniel, we'll put in some sky, and then we'll basically be done. If anyone asks me, I can, like, if you say Addo on Cyclops, I'll see it. We can talk about anything else if anyone wants to ask me anything else. The last thing someone asked me about was Kabbalah, and 2 people said, yeah, we should talk about that, so... Yeah, basically, well, this is like kind of my rundown. I'm not like an academic, but this is like my rundown. I did hang out in that world for a little while. I was into it for a while, you could say. It kind of is like one logical endpoint if you're really into Western occult. I'll explain why in a second, I guess. But yeah, it really developed around like somewhere, I mean, I'll give like a really, really wide window. You can look into it yourself if you want. Around like, what, like somewhere between like 11 and like 1300 AD. It's actually pretty late in the game. Of course, like, you know, a Jewish like rabbinical person would tell you it's like way older than that, but I don't really subscribe to that personally, so believe what you want. But yeah, it developed pretty late in the game, and it's kind of like I guess you could say it's kind of like a hyper mystical interpretation of the Old Testament. It's kind of hard to say because with that kind of thing, it's like, well, do I say it's like a school of thought? I mean, it's not really a school of thought all on its own. Do I say it's like a set of teachings? I guess. I mean, I don't know. You know, it's kind of hard to like pick a particular term. It's like a thing. A lot of times these like movements and, you know, I don't even know if I should call it movement. A lot of times these like spiritual things that pop up, it's almost like they're more of like a tendency than a particular like thought set. I like using the word tendency. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a vibe, but it's not that abstract. I'm going to put some light coming up behind the leopard, and we're closing in. We're closing in on this one. It looks really dope. So I'm just going to kind of shade it out a little bit. I want to get that same effect if you were here last time. Once you get some color in the background, the white stops being the background color. Sounds really dumb, but... And it kind of like all comes together as like a unified picture. So that's what I'm going for right now. So yeah, it comes up around then. They say it was like passed down orally from like the time of Moses usually, but again, I don't really subscribe to that. And it's kind of just like a set of teachings that are, you know, about like how God made the universe and all this stuff. And this is again just my opinion. I'm not going to say that every 2 seconds, but it's just my view. Also, a lot of these traditions are meant to be like kept secret, so you can't like just go to Barnes and Noble and get like the real story, quote unquote. So I'm just telling you what I think. But the tree of life, which is what most people think of when they think of Kabbalah, that weird like diagram, it's not even really like, I mean, it's hardcore in like some forms of Kabbalah, but other times it's not. I think most like you know, some Hasidic rabbi or the people who like really actually live that life would probably be kind of confused as to why people would be so interested in it. They'd probably just think that you saw like Madonna was into it or something like that. So yeah, but what really happens is, and I think the reason why people are kind of confused about it, is that there's really 2 times it gets really hardcore picked up and kind of put into Western culture. One is Christian, and it's this guy Pico Mirandola. I actually have a book here about him. I'm not going to bother finding it right now. There's this guy named Pico Mirandola who, in Florence, there's a lot of like esoterica, hermetic, alchemy stuff going on. The Medicis are really into it, and a lot of books are getting translated for the first time. And actually, it's kind of a funny story. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the stream before, but Pico Mirandola writes this book. Yeah, we did mention it before. I mentioned it before because someone told me the number of the theses. I forgot. So just really quickly, he writes this book that's all about how like it's kind of like the first iteration of, hey guys, we just realized that all these like esoteric sciences and Christianity actually go together, and you know, he wrote this whole book about it, and the Pope was like, yeah, you're a heretic, like get the fuck out. And it didn't really go so well for him, and he kind of took it too far. He said like Jesus was like doing Kabbalah and all this like crazy stuff, so really did not go too well for him. But he really tried to like merge it in. Okay, hold up, I need to pay attention really quick because I put that yellow down and I did not like how it looked. It was way too green and like highlightery, so I'm just going to try and wash out this orange, but I don't want to get it too close to the leopards. So what I'm going to do is just wash it out. And I'm going to get the paper all wet. Yeah, perfect. I'm going to kind of let the white function as a color around the leopards. And the orange is going to merge with the blue a little bit and start getting a little muddy, but that's good. I actually want that. I actually want that a lot. Yeah, it's perfect. So one is Pico Mirandola. There technically is like a Christian. I'm not saying it is legitimate. I'm saying it's some people got into it. Attempt at like merging Kabbalah with Christianity. That's when you see it spelled with a C. If you see Kabbalah spelled with a C, it's kind of what the person is like implying. And then way later, Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley, all those people basically used it. Israel Regardie is another person. All these Golden Dawn people, if you looked into it, used it, especially the Tree of Life diagram, as like a substructure for a lot of their work. And it's actually a perfect illustration of one reason why I think that their worldview is kind of just, aside from being like wrong and untenable, it kind of just becomes lame after a while, because the Tree of Life is a perfect example of what they do. They like take some diagram like that. It's basically like an esoteric like spreadsheet. So they take like the Kabbalah Tree of Life diagram and they start like mapping stuff over it. So they're like, I'm not saying just they did this, but that's kind of how it functions. They're like, oh, there's 9 planets. So they stack the Tree of Life, the planets over this Tree of Life diagram. And then they're like, hey, you know what? Actually, all the paths on this diagram, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it kind of looks like a spider web with a bunch of like dots all connecting it, but it's more like vertical than just a spider web. Wow, this orange and blue looks sick right now. I can't believe I'm doing this while I'm talking. There's 9 planets. Let's map it over this like, spider diagram. And then, hey, you know what? All the paths connecting these balls on this spider web, there's the same number of them as there are tarot cards. So let's stack the tarot cards over this diagram. So now all the tarot cards are between these different planets on this diagram. And hey, you know what? Actually, there's 12 zodiac signs. And there's these 12 paths here. So let's stack the zodiac diagram, stack the zodiac signs up on that also. And now, because we did that, every tarot card is associated with a zodiac sign. And hey, guess what? Also, and you see they keep like stacking all these things over each other. So I don't really have a good term to describe it, but basically I describe it as like a system that generates like tautological information spontaneously. It's like the way the system works is that it just keeps generating more and more connections, but the connections are basically arbitrary, So basically what it does is like at the beginning you're like, oh my god, cool, there's so much cool stuff here for me to learn, and you keep going deeper and deeper into it, but in my opinion, like those connections are arbitrary. Like as you go harder into like modern Western occult Kabbalah, I mean eventually you're like, am I like learning stuff, or am I just getting kind of schizo and building my own diagram where all these things are like connected but they're not really? And I'm sure someone could give me pushback and be like, oh, you just didn't get it. But actually that's literally specifically outlined in Aleister Crowley's work. His kind of like ultimate Kabbalistic work is, and I'm only saying this because I think it's whack, and I don't think other people know why it's whack or how people get like sucked into this stuff, so I will tell you. His major Kabbalistic work is called 777. It's a book called 777. And there's a few essays in it, but then primarily what most of the book is just tables. It's all these tables where he's stacking these systems over and over each other. And he says explicitly that's what he's doing. He says for the modern like Western occult practitioner, you know, you have the system of, 30 Egyptian gods and 30 Hindu gods and all these zodiac signs and these I Ching. And the I Ching, there's 24 of these I Ching trigrams. I know there's only 8. I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff. So how do we like reconcile this and build what he calls a magical alphabet? And he uses that Kabbalistic Excel spreadsheet to build the whole thing out. And he says like, yeah, we're kind of just arbitrarily putting it in here, but this is how we're going to build this like magical alphabet that's going to like unite all these different systems, so that when this guy's over here talking about the I Ching, and this guy's over here talking about the zodiac signs, and this guy's over here talking about the Egyptian gods, are we back? I was going too hard. The Illuminati said, relax. Now I'm back. I think I'm back. The Illuminati said, chill. You're dropping too many truth bombs. But I think I'm good. I think I'm fine. For some reason, I just blinked out for a second. I should be back now. Yeah. The powers that be. I was about to put it all together and tell you guys what Kabbalah is, and then they said no. They said don't do it. They said you can't. We're back, right? Let me know. I'm looking at the chat. I think we're back, though. There's a little bit of delay between me and the chat, just in general. But I think we're good. That was the fastest blink in and out ever, so I think we should be fine. But if I get one more, I refresh and you're back. All right, I think we're back. Let me know if we're not back. Raise your hand if you're not here. I'm just going to keep picking up where I left off. We're about to wrap this up anyway. But yeah, so I was about to make such a good point. So I'm just going to pick up the point that I was going to say. That's basically how the system works. They try and stack, they basically have to, because it's actually a really interesting piece of like New Age ethnography and why New Age stuff is the way it is and why things are the way they are. They were kind of the first ones, in my opinion, to like really realize that if you're a modern person into all these systems, you have to stack them over each other, because they're it's such a good tie-in to what we were talking about in the beginning, and it's such a good place to wrap up the show, because they're precluded from saying, well, here's this system called the I Ching, and here's the system of Egyptian gods, and here's the system of Hindu gods. They're precluded from saying, well, some of this stuff is true and some of it isn't, or they're even precluded from saying, well, these are just different systems. Even if they were being purely relativist and they were going to say, well, yeah, they're just different systems, so they have kind of different stuff going on. They're precluded even from that. So it's kind of like Aleister Crowley's Kabbalistic work is like, for me, people say like Nietzsche saw atheism coming and wrote about it and kind of like presaged all that. For me, in kind of like an evil reverse way, Aleister Crowley's Kabbalistic work is like prefiguring the whole New Age thing and the modern like cult of like every religion being correct, because that's what he was doing. He was saying, yeah, well, if I think all these systems are valid, I have to be able to stack them over each other. And he was basically just schizo enough. Nice. I wanted to get this color out of his mouth. Perfect. Just schizo enough to say, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to stack them into this Excel spreadsheet and build slightly arbitrary connections. But for me, I guess I'll just kind of pretend they're not arbitrary. And that's what it is. I have the book on my shelf, actually. It's called 777. And if anyone wants to like start getting into how do we unpack this stuff and like frankly, like how do we push back against it, there's PDFs of the book online. I don't think that's illegal, because I think it's public domain because it's so old. But if it's not, don't do anything illegal, just saying. But you want to find an essay called On the Creation of a Magical Alphabet, because that's where he really outlines that's where he outlines it all. If you want to know what the seed of the modern Western occult stuff post-1900 that created, in my opinion, a crazy large amount of the situation we're in right now, it's a really short essay. Yeah, it's called On the Creation of The Magical Alphabet by Aleister Crowley. Something like that. You can check that out. Don't get into that stuff if you haven't sorted out your like relationship with like God and like, you know, if you haven't got a firm foundation, don't go poking into all that stuff. But if you know that like, you know, Jesus is real and like, you know, if you have a theological situation and you're like, okay, I can check it out, then that's what you should check out. Okay. It was a really tight detour. I got really amped actually talking about that because I haven't really laid that out in a while. All right. Speaking of worldviews that attempt to incorporate many different conceptions of the truth, but also are antithetical to the truth, and you're kind of forced to bow down to them in a modern empire that forces you into a weird situation. We're looking at this picture from the book of Daniel, and I think we killed it. I think we freaking rocked it, man. This looks really dope. I'm actually really stoked about this. It really came together while I was talking. I kind of actually, my adrenaline is kind of pumping right now because I got kind of a rush while I was like really explaining that and like getting really into it and like mixing and getting the colors, and the colors look sick. My heart is actually pounding a little bit. You hit that zone. You hit that zone where you're like, oh, it's coming together perfectly. And it's kind of just what happened for me. So thank you for hanging out and being a part of that. Otherwise, though, yeah, it looks sick. I kind of painted in the background while I was talking, but the orange and blue is like my favorite set of complementary colors. Complementary colors are opposites on the color wheel, so you can look up that if you want. But yeah, man, I think it looks dope. And with the orange bleeding into the blue, you get these kind of grays. The background's varying enough. I think this monster came out really good. It basically is a dragon. We could have pushed it a little bit more on the not being a dragon front, but I'm stoked about it. I like how Daniel is bleeding out here with the background. I left some white behind the smoke. Honestly, I would say this was really successful. This is a really good one. It kind of took a little bit longer than I thought, but I'm cool with it, man. Yeah, I guess you guys are too. And yeah, I think it looks really, really dope. I really like this kind of horn, how it doesn't look too scary, but when I do these, I kind of think of them as like painting sketches. So not that they're full, complete paintings, but they're kind of like ideas for paintings, and sketching is really the word. Sometimes a sketch can be beautiful, but it's not the same thing as like planning and making a perfect picture. But yeah, man, I think this looks dope. We got the watercolor texture going on. I'm just kind of trying to think if there's anything else I want to say, but I'm really pleased with how this came out. I'm enjoying looking at it right now. I'm enjoying looking at my own artwork. Me looking at my own painting. Wow, this is so good. All right, let's just make sure I hit everything everyone said over here. I'm back. Yes. What's on the docket next week? Great question, dude. I don't know. I'm going to see what comes up in my studies. I like the format of us hitting like a solid biblical thing, and then we can hit some exposition on it, talk about it, and then kind of jump into the symbolism and can kind of unpack it, look at it a little more archetypally. So I'm not totally sure. It'll be similar format. We'll pick something from the Bible and we'll kind of jump into it, but I'm not really sure. If anyone's curious, you can tag me on Twitter and I'll let you know what I'm thinking. Oh yeah, put it side by side with last week's. Yeah, good call actually. I guess I have to make it. Do I have to make it vertical? I have to zoom. This is very dangerous. I'm gonna zoom the camera out right now. Just trying to make sure I don't show anything that I'm not supposed to show, but I think we're good. I'll put up last week's. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm honestly just going to see what organically comes up in my studies. But if anyone's curious what we're going to do next week, just tag me on Twitter, and maybe you'll pressure me into immediately making a call. Can we fit them both? Can we fit them both on the screen? Yeah! Nice. So we officially completed Daniel's visions from Daniel chapter 7. Good job, guys. Good job. We did it. Should put like a video game like completion screen right now. That's sick. And honestly, this is a really perfect example of the themes I'm trying to hit because it's really very rich. It's very like potent in terms of like analysis, psychologically. Not really psychologically. It's not really my thing, but just like in terms of what it means about us and like our spiritual life. It's really all I meant. But it's not really as well known. I don't know if most people know about this. So I want to try and find something else like that. I'll see what comes up in my studies. But yeah, like I said, tag me on Twitter if you want me to know. That's basically everything. Nice. Looks good. Awesome. Cool, guys. Well, that's it. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Or if you're watching this later. But I have to talk to people that are here because they're here with me right now. But yeah, man, thanks for hanging out. I really love doing this. It's going really well, I think. We're pushing it. We're before, it was like, my wife said that like whenever I came out of the studio, it was like 1 week it was good, 1 week it was bad, 1 week it was good, 1 week... Not bad, but I was like, oh, I don't know how it went. But now every week I'm like, yeah, getting better, climbing that mountain. So cool, man. Maybe I'll change up the format in terms of the colors and stuff. We'll figure it out later. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for checking it out. Hit me up. I love hanging out with you guys online. It's a really good time. And that's basically it, man. I will catch you guys on the internet where we all hang out together, surviving the strange storms that set upon us. Good luck. But also, I'll see you soon. And I'll talk to you guys later. All right, see you guys later. Bye.